Fast love, fast touch, and fast Python program you can't forget. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Python Crash Course for Absolute Beginner by Knowledge Doctor. I am Mishudha Chandu and I am super excited to be an instructor of this course. So in this course, you're going to learn Python from basic to advanced. And also at the last of the video, we are going to do 5 projects. So if you're a beginner, you don't know what is Python, you can also follow this course because I'm trying to make you pro. So without any further ado, so let's get started. So what is Python? So Python is a very popular general purpose interpreted and interactive and also object-oriented and high-level programming language. It was created by Guido von Rossum during the 190-85 to 190-90. So Python is very popular right now because of machine learning library like TensorFlow, Keras, OpenCV, and so on. So let's see the agenda for this course. What are you going to cover on this course? So this is the agenda for this course. So first, we are going to discuss about the first Python program, like hello world. Then we are going to discuss about the variable, data type, and data input. Then operators in Python and string manipulations with some exercise, list, tuple, sets, and the dictionary. So the four are nothing but called the data structure in Python. Then we are going to discuss about the conditional logic like if, else, and else if. Then we are going to discuss some loops like for loops and while loops and going to solve some problems. Then we are going to discuss about the functions in Python and we are going to discussing all the types of functions that how can we use in Python. Then you also see that how can you handle the file, how can you read the file, how can you write the file, and also we are going to handle the exceptions in files. Then we are going to discuss about the OS module, that's in operating system module. Then also the date time module. So this is the agenda for the full course. At the last of the video, we are going to discussing about the 5 projects. We're going to build it from the scratch and for beginner to medium level. So now let's see the careers with Python. So if you learn Python, what are the benefit of that? First one is a game developer. You can develop some game using the Python. The second one is hot topic right now, machine learning engineer, data scientist, DevOps engineer, data analyst, and also the software engineer. So if you learn Python smartly, you can choose any of them and make your career. But my personal request, go for machine learning. So now, without any further ado, so let's get started. First love, first touch, and first Python program you can't forget. By the way, now we are going to write our first Python program. So that first we are actually using our Python shell and later on we use our base code. So for that, you need to open your command prompt. You can use one shortcut key, Windows R, and type here the CMD and enter. And you can type here Python. And you can see here the version of Python is right now 3.8.5 that I am using. You can use Python 3.9 or 3.10. Okay. So now we are going to do the coding here for the Python shell, and later on we are going to do the coding on editor that's called VS Code. So this is our Python shell. You can see here 3 sign here. Okay. So now we are going to write our first program, simple hello world. Just trying to print here. So let's say if I'm using this print function here, and inside this I'm just going to write here one string that's called hello world. Okay, this world ORLD world. Well, and enter, and you can see your hello world on the shell. Okay, hello world. You can write any kind of statement inside this print function, or you can say print method. So if I'm trying to write here, let's say print the knowledge doctor. So let's say knowledge doctor, and it will print this statement for me. You can see here knowledge doctor. So this is your first program. You can also use this Python shell to do calculations. So if I'm trying to use here 5 plus 4 or 5 plus 3, you can see here 5 plus 3 equal to 8. So you can also do the multiplication here. So let's say 4 into 3, you can see here 12. You can also use here divide. Okay, so let's say 10 divide 2. You can also use here the modulo operations. You can use that. So let's say 10 modulo operation 3. Okay, and you can see here 1. You can also so many calculation here. Let's say use here this kind of calculation. So let's say 9 into 2. Okay, so there should be 9 into 2, and you can see the answer. So you can use this Python shell as your calculator, and also you can use the Python shell as a printer. You can see you can just print here something on the shell. So now you're going to see the same code inside our VS Code. That's mean our Visual Studio Code. How can you do that? So this is our VS Code interface, and you can see one folder that's called Python Crash Course. So now inside this folder, we are going to create one Python file. Let's say fast.py. Okay, so our Python file is created. So now what I can do, we are going to actually write our fast program that we do earlier. So let's say print here the hello world. Okay, hello world. Simple. And now if I am trying to save this code, you can also go to this file and you can also use here the auto save. And right now you can see auto save is right on my side. If I am not saving it, Control S, so it will automatically save this file. Okay, so let's save this also, Control S. And if I click this button, and you can see if I click here, you can see run code, run Python file, and debug Python file. If I click this run code, and it will actually show me the output in the terminal. You can see hello world. So if I'm trying to close it and also try to run Python code, it also run the Python code here, right? That's really awesome. You can also use the terminal here. You can just go on the terminal and new terminal, and you can type here the Python, your interpreter name and your file name. So our file name is nothing but fast.py. Well, and you can see your hello world. That's really awesome. So you can also do the calculation here, and you can see here simple hello world here. We can also do here the calculation. Let's say that we do earlier in the Python shell. So let's say 5 plus 3. So if I run the code here, and you can see the output at 8. And if I do the 5 minus 3, and you can see here 2. Okay, you can also use here the multiplication. Okay, 5 cross 3, and you can see here 50. Same as the Python shell. But there's a problem. We can't just write a statement inside our printf statement. We can use here a variable to store those value. So next topic we are trying to discuss about this one. How can you use variables in Python? So our next topic is variable, data type, and data input. So now let's see what is variable. So variables are like in boxes, and you can see here this one kind of boxes, or you can say one container. Just a water can be stored in a box. Object can be stored in variables. So variable can store many kind of things. It can store the values. So there is an equal sign between the variables and the value. So when you write the variables in Python, so there should be an equal sign between the variables and the values. You can store the value inside your variable. So the left side of the symbol is called the variable, and the right side is the value of the variable. So when we are trying to write the code in Python, and you can see here one variable name and one equal sign and the value of the variable. So this is called the assignment. So in the last video, we see that how can you print some statement inside our print function. And also we do the multiplication, we just make some calculation inside that. So now we're going to see that how can we use the variable inside our Python program. So for that, let's create another file. So this is the second part. So let's make it second.py. Okay. So now we are going to create one variables. So variables can be any name. So let's say x equal to 5. So x is the variable name and 5 is the value of that. So this is the sign equal sign. So now if I'm trying to print it, let's say print the x, okay? And if I'm save it and click here to run the file, and you can see here 5, right? So 5, why? Because this is the store the value of x, okay? X value equal to 5. So that's why it print here 5. So if I change this, should be the 1, 1 5, and you can see here 1 5, right? So now let's clear it. Okay, now if I am change this value as 12, right now if I click here to run this file, and you can see here value is right now 12, but what the problem, it's not printing the 15, it's printing here the 12. Why? Because Python use here the interpreter, and it will actually execute the next line. In any kind of programming language, it actually printing the 12. So this is called the reassignment. What? Reassignment. Okay, so now we are going to store the value of that, and we can do the calculation. So let's say 3. So if I'm trying to add it, x plus y, and run it, and you can see here 18. Simple. You can also use here the minus sign, and you can use here the modulo sign. You can do any kind of calculations. Okay, so this is called the variables in Python. So there are some rules in Python to declare one variable. You can't use here the capital letter add to z, and also use here the small letter add to z. You can also use here the digit 0 to 9. You can use this, or you can also use the underscore. You can use this as a variable name. Okay, but there is some restriction. You can't use them as a Python variable. So there are some reserved keyword in Python. You can't use this reserved keyword as a Python variable. So if I make it at, let's say, my name, let's say Chando, so this should be one variable. Okay, if I'm using here underscore, so this should be one variable, right? And you can also use here digit. So let's say digit here, let's say 1. So this is not should be one variable. Why? You can use the digit, but you cannot use this digit at the first index, right? At the first, you can use here inside your variable name like that, but you cannot use this at the first one, right? So this is the uses that how can you declare one variable in Python. If I'm trying to actually print it, let's say just make it Chando, and you can also comment this line. So for that, you can use here one shortcut key. So control and the backslash, and it will comment this line. This interpreter is not actually execute this line right now. So if I click here to run the shell, and you can see here 15. So this is our variable. It has stored the value. You can also use here 0 to 9. You can also use here the underscore. So let's use here underscore. So if I'm trying to print it, so let's see, print it, and you can click here and you can see 15. Simple. But you can't use here some reserved keyword in Python. Let's say true. Okay, this should be the true. So this is a reserved keyword in Python. You can't use this as a variable. If I'm trying to use here, let's say false. So this is a reserved keyword. Let's say try. Okay, this is a reserved keyword in Python. You can't use this as a variable, right? So let's see some list of restriction. That's mean the keyword. You can't use this as a variable. So this is the list of that. You can't use this kind of keyword in Python as a variable. False, none, true, and exe, not, as, finally, or, assert, like that. All the value, you can take one snapshot of that, and you can memorize this also to just make it make sense that you can't use this keyword as a variable. So now we are going to jump the next topic, that's called data input. How can you take the input from the users? So now we are going to discuss about that. How can we take the input from the user? So let's say a equal to 5. See, this a is a variable and 5 is a value, but we give here 5 as a manually. Okay, just type here as a manually. Now we are going to take the input from the user. User just type here and it will take one input. So for that, what I can do here, we can use here one method in Python that's called input. Simple. And this is a method. So this sign, this bracket, you need to use here, input. So if I'm trying to print here the a, okay, and if I run the code here, and it will take in the input. If I give here, let's say 2, and it print here 2, and you can see here 2. Okay, so if I run the code here again, let's say Python second.py, let's say 6, enter, and you can see here 6. So this is the input function, or you can say input method to take the input from the users. You can also give here one message here. Let's say enter a number. Cool. And now if I run the code here, and you can see enter a number. So let's say 5, and you can see 5. You can also do the calculation here. So let's say b equal, let's say copy this. So let's say enter first number, then enter the second number. Okay, cool. And now if I give here a plus b, and now run the file here, and you can see here enter the first number, let's say 2, and the second number, let's say 5. But got here 25. Why? What's the problem here? Yes, that's the problem. Because how can the Python take the input from the users is that take the input as a string. Now what is a string? A string is a data type in Python. So there are some data type inside in Python. It's called integer, then called float, then called string, then called boolean. So that are the data type in Python. Okay, you just need to memorize them: integer, float, string, and the boolean. So now the question is, how can we check that is our variable is right now as a taking the input as a string, or taking the input as an integer, or taking the input as a float. So for that, we can use here one method to check that. That's called type method. So let's say print, let's say type of a. So using this, we can actually check that the type of our variables. So let's comment out this line and click here to save it and run the code. Let's say first number. So let's say 2, let's say 7. And you can see your class is string. Why class? Because Python is object-oriented programming language. That's why it's class. Simple. String. So you take the input as a string. So that's why when we add them, we just give here 2 and 5. We just add it to a string, not to integer. So for that, we can do the typecasting. That's called the typecasting in Python. So for that, you can use this keyword to typecasting the type. If I'm using this, let's say int, and inside this integer, we just need to pass here. That's called type of int. Now again, so integer and this one. So now this string is converted into one integer. So now if I uncomment this line and run the file here, so let's give here to click here to run the file. First number, let's say 5, and second number, let's call 10. And you can see your class is right an integer, and it also add the 2 number. You can see the 15. Cool. So now if I'm trying to make it as a float, okay, and let's make it as a float, and let's run this code, and you can see here, just give here 10 to value, let's say 10 and 33, and you can see here 33.0. There's also one data type that's called double. Okay, also list, also dictionary, also tuple. So we are going to discuss this all the data type later on, right? So now you can make one simple calculator using that. That's really simple. Okay, so this is our data input from the users. Okay, and also the data type. So how can you declare the data type, and how can you take the input from the users? So now the question is, we taking the input in a single line, a equal to or b equal to. How can we taking the input from the user in a multiple line, in one single line but multiple input? See, if I run the code here again, see one thing. Just we need to give here 23 and again enter from the keyboard, and let's say 56. So you get here the output, but we need to type here 2 values one after another. So how can we type here in one single line? So for that, we need to use here one method that's called split. We just need to split this function or value using one space or using one comma. Okay, so now if I am assign here one variable that's called x comma y, that's mean inside this x and y, we are trying to take in the input and also store it. So let's say enter 2 number. Okay, let's enter 2 numbers. Okay, so how can you do that? We actually using here one function that's called, or method that's called split. Okay, this one split. So we are going to split that, okay, and store inside the x and y. So now if I'm trying to print this one statement, let's say print, and let's say type of the x, and also let's say x plus y. So this type should be the string. So we are going to convert it into the integer. So that's how we are going to use the typecasting. Just this one. And now if I am comment this line also, we don't need it right now. And let's run the code here. So enter 2 number. So let's say 12 and let's say 23. And you can see here invalid literally for integer is base 10, 12 and 23. So we need to just first need to take the input from the users. So let's say 23 and let's say 34, and you can see a 2 3 3 4. We're taking the input, but we can change in one single line. So for that, we need to use here x equal to int x and y equal to, we just need to do in another operation, x and y. You can also use this. Let's run the code here. Let's say 2 number, let's say 5 and the 6. We can take in the input in a single line. Okay, you can say 11. If I'm trying to use here int inside this whole function, Okay, and just comment out this line and just run the code here. So let's see 5 and the 8, and you can see your same error. Okay, so you cannot use this as a typecasting for the two input. So for that, you need to just follow this line: x equal to int x and y equal to int y. Cool. So this is the part number 2 of variables, data type, and the data input. So if you have any query, just comment below. So now let's move on the next topic, that's called operator. So now in this part, we are going to discuss about the operators in Python. So in the first one, in the operator, that's called the arithmetic operator. So this is so simple, just basic operator here: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulo operation, exponential, and also the floor divisions. So now we are going to use these operators in Python. So this is the part number 2 that we do earlier. So now we are going to create another Python file here that's called third.py. So this is our third part. So in this part, we are going to discuss about the operators in Python. So first, we are going to discuss about the arithmetic operator that you see earlier, right? So arithmetic operator, there are some operator like plus, then minus, then multiplications, then division, then modulo operations, and also the exponential sign. So exponential sign is nothing but called just double sign, and also the division and also the floor division. Okay, so there's are the operator that's called the arithmetic operator. So now we are going to assign here into one variable that's called a equal, let's say 5 plus 2. If I'm trying to print it, let's say print a, and if I run the code here, and you can see here 7 as the output, right? So it's just simple adding. If I use here minus, so there should be 3, and now I'm using here the into, just multiplication, 5 cross 2 equal to 10. So now if I'm using here the exponential, 5 is to 2, that's been exponential time. Okay, so this is nothing but called the power of 5. So power of 5 is nothing but our 25 normal. If I'm using here 3, okay, you can see here we got an error, so you cannot use here 3. Okay, you just use here 2. If you use here 3 right now, so this is the power of 5 cross 5 cross 5. That's mean 5 to the 3 equal to 125 normal. Okay, so if I'm using here the division, simple division, and you can see here 1.66 something. If I'm using the double, that's mean this is give here the floor division, so the answer should be 1. Okay, 1, right? It will actually give you the floor divisions. So if you divide by 10, 10 the floor division of 3, so it will give here answer as 3. Okay, integer 1 normal. And also let's say modulo operations, so 10 modulo 3, and it will give here the modulo operation value equal to 1 normal and simple. So this is called the arithmetic operators. So there's the comparison operator. So you can see here equal, not equal, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So there's the comparison operator. So let's move on the VS Code. So now let's see the comparison operator. So there are some operator available: equal, equal, then not equal, and also have the greater than, then less than, or greater than equal, or less than equal. So there's the comparison operator. So now we are going to use this operator and do some Python programs. So let's use the 2 equal to. So let's try to print it out. Let's print if let's say 2 equal to, right? So this is obviously equal. So it will give me the value as true. Also 1. Okay, I need to comment out this line also. So 2 equal to true. So obviously it's true. It's also called the Boolean operator. It will give here a true and false answer. So if 2 not equal to 2, it's not true. It obviously false. So it give me the result as false. So if I'm actually using here, let's say 5 is greater than equal to 2. So this is a true or false. This is 5 is greater than equal to 2. But you can see here the less than sign. So it will actually give here answer as a false. If I am using here the 5 is greater than 2, so it is obviously true. So it will give here answer as a true. Normal. If I'm using here 5 is greater equal to 2, so it is obviously true, because this is always greater. So if I'm actually using here the 5, so 5 is greater or equal 5. Just it will actually compare the two values between them. So it will equal or the greater. So greater is not, but it is equal. So if I run the code, you can see here true. Okay. So again, less equal. So you can see here true, right? So this is the normal operator. That's called a comparison operator. If you are trying to compare two values, you can use this one. So our next operator is nothing but called the assignment operator. This is really simple. If you're trying to assign some values inside your variable, you can use this assignment operator. So let's see the example. Okay, so now you're going to see the assignment operator. So let's say I am trying to give here one value. Let's say a equal to 5. Normal. Or you can say a variable name. Let's say var, or let's say value, or it is a keyword. So let's say give here val. Okay, so let's say val equal to 5. So I am trying to add here again 5 value with that. Let's mean 5 into 5, or 5 plus 5. Let's say val equal to val plus 5. Simple. I'm just adding here 5 value with this value, right? So if I'm trying to print it, let's say print the value. So the value is obviously with 10. You can see here I just get here 10, but we can make it simple. We can use here this kind of operator that's called the assignment operator. Just using this one, val plus equal to 5. That's mean it's mean val equal to val plus 5. This line and this line are same, right? Almost same. So if I run the code here, and you can see here same output as a 10. If you change it, let's say 1 5, and the value should be 20, right? If you use this minus, it will actually subtract the value from the 10. If you use here the into operator, it will again the same do. 15 cross 5 equal to 75. Again divisions you can use here equal to 3. Normal. It's really normal. Okay, so this is called the assignment operator. You can use this shortcut. Okay, so our next topic is logical operator. It's really simple, just and or not. Let's go on the VS Code. So let's comment out this line. Okay, and also close it. So now our topic is nothing but call the operator of logical, just mean logical operator. So and or not, that's are the three operators that is available inside your Python. Okay, so let's say and is actually checking the two values. Okay, so let's say if 2 equal to 2, and also let's say 3 equal to 3. Okay, so if I'm trying to check this out, let's try to print it out. Let's say print inside this value. If 2 equal 2 and also 3 equal 3, that's mean you need to satisfy the two values. Okay, if I'm change it, let's say run the first code right now, you can see a true. If I'm change it, if 3 equal to 4, it will obviously give me the value as a false. Why? Because this and is checking the both condition. Okay, left side and also the right side conditions. And after that, if the two values equal, then it will give here true answer. Otherwise, it will give here false answer. If I'm actually using here all, it will just check at least one value, at least one. If you try to run the code, you can see here a gap here value as a true. Why? Because 2 equal to 2, it's really true. Okay. If I'm actually using here not right now, but it will give me the error. Okay, you cannot use this kind of comparison operator like that in a logical operator between them. Okay, you can use and or. So when you actually use here not, you can just use here not in single conditions, only on single condition. So let's say not. Okay, so not 2 equal to 2, so this is really should be false because 2 equal to is really true. But how you need to make it not? So true is obviously make is as false. So if let's say 2 is not equal to 2, it is not real. So I give here, I actually got here value as a true because 2 is not equal to 2 is really false. So if I'm trying to make it convert as a not, so it should be true, right? So this is nothing but call the logical operator and or and not. So and will check the both two conditions, left side and also the right side, and or just check the one condition and not check that, or you can say not are actually making the true should be false and false should be true. Simple, really very simple. So now we're going to see the membership operator in Python. I think so many operator here. So next operator is called the membership operator, in and not in. So in is actually return the true if the sequence is the specified with x in y. If the value of y is present inside the x, so it will actually give you the true answer. Otherwise, it will show the false answer. So not in, that's mean this is the opposite of in. Simple. If the true, it will make it false. If the false, and it will make it true. Normal. So let's see the VS Code. Mm, let's take two variable. Let's say one variable called country. Let's say my country name. I'm from Bangladesh, so let's say Bangladesh. Okay, and let's say uh, country. Let's say one equal to, let's say, normal dash. So if I'm checking that if the dash is available inside this country one, so how can we check that? So we are using here the membership operator simple in. If the country one in country, okay, normal. So if I'm trying to print it, let's say print it. So this is obviously true or false. It is obviously true because country one dash is present inside the country. Okay, run the code, you can see it true. But if I am trying to change this deshi, let's it, and you can see it false because deshi is not available inside Bangladesh. Again, let's say if I am trying to make this country to country one, okay, and try to make it run it, you can see it false because this country total value is not available inside dash because this is normal dash and this is Bangladesh, so this is not available inside dash, right? So if I make it not, so it will give here false right now. You can see answer is right now false. So obviously I get here as a true. Why? Because this is the opposite of this not in. Okay, if I'm actually get here value as a true, so it will give here value as a false. If I'm get here value as a false, I just get true, right? So this is the membership operator. So now our next operator and the final operator is called the identity operator. So this is so important. So the operator is and is not. So is mean if return actually true if the both variable are the same object. That's mean if the both value are equal in the same object category, it will actually return here as a true. Otherwise, it return here false. So is not is totally different, or you can see opposite of is. Let's check this out. So let's comment out this line. Let's say a equal to, let's say, India. Okay, and let's say b equal to 12. Normal. So let's say a is b. Is it really true or not? So if I'm trying to print it, a is b, and if I run the code here, you can see here false because a is nothing but one string and b is nothing but one integer. So it's not. So let's say if I'm trying to make it as, let's say, 13 and try to run the code, and you can see it again false because a and b value is not same. If I'm trying to make it 12, and you can see it true. So again, it is the opposite. So if b is not, so again, it will give here as a result as a false, opposite of the true. Normal, right? So this is nothing but called the identity operator in Python. So in the next part, we are going to discuss about the string manipulations. So this is so important part. And I just moved through this is operator because this is real simple. So let's move on the next part called string manipulation. So our next topic is nothing but called string manipulation. So what is string actually? String is nothing but joining of some character. But in Python, if the value is surrounding between one single quotation or the double quotation, that's called string. So now let's go on the VS Code and try this out. So this is our fourth topic called string manipulation. So let's create here another Python file here. So let's say fourth.py. So we already told about that in Python, we can actually use here two quotation, one single quotation and also the double quotation. And inside that, that's called the string. So let's assign here one variable that's called a. Let's say India, and another variable, let's say call b. Let's say inside the single quotation, let's say Bangladesh. Okay. So you can see here, we can actually initialize as a string in a single quotation and also the double quotation. If I am trying to print it type, so let's say print type of a and also the type of b. So let's copy this out and paste it, type of a and type of b, and just run the code. Okay, you can see here this is nothing but called string. Okay, both are string. So now if I'm trying to use here one single quotation inside this value, let's say Bangladesh is my motherland. Okay, so if I'm trying to use one single quotation inside this line, can I? So let's say my. You can see here I got one error. I cannot use here one single quotation inside one single quotation. Why? Because this is the first single quotation and our Python interpreter is actually waiting for the next quotation. And you can see here this is the first quotation and this is the second quotation. But the problem is both are rest of the two are not at the same. Okay. So that's why our string is completed in this side and this error is come the right side. This means rest of them. So that's why you can't use the single quotation inside a single quotation. So how can I remove this problem? We can actually use here double quotation. Okay, my. So if I'm trying to print it, you can see here. Okay, it not should be the type. So let's say print the B, normal B, and just remove the sign here. You can see here Python is my motherland, and also you can see here double quotation. You can see it's also printed. So it's also same as here. Let's say India is my motherland. Okay. So if I'm trying to print it, let's say inside that I can't use here the double quotation. I need to use here one single quotation. Okay. That's mean in the double quotation side, you need to use here single quotation, and in the single quotation side, you need to use here the double quotation. If I'm trying to run the code here, let's say print also the A. Okay. So let's make it A. And on the code, you can see here Bangladesh is my motherland and also the India is my motherland, right? So both are printing well, but the problem is you can see here the quotation and this also the quotation. Okay. Also, you can use here single quotation inside your single quotation string. So now the question is, how can you print this my inside one single quotation using one single quotation? Just using this kind of single quotation. How can you do that? So you can use here one forward slash, okay, not backward. So let's say forward slash this one and this one, okay, and you can see here our error is gone. So if I'm trying to print it out, and you can see Bangladesh is my motherland, we can print it inside one single quotation. We can actually print one single quotation. So for that, this is also same. So let's say my, we can use here forward, not backward slash, okay, like that. So you can see here error is gone. So we can try to print here the A. Okay, sorry for that. Just make it A and run the code, and you can see India is my motherland. Well, so now we can also print here the backslash. So if I'm trying to print here this slash backslash, and if I'm trying to run the code, and you can see here backslash, if I actually use here again two, and you can see here I can print here the two slash. But if I'm trying to print here one forward slash, okay, so we can see here I got an error. But if I'm using here two, so I can actually print here one. Well, so this is a technique. You can also use here the tab, that's been backslash n. You can see a space. You can also use here backslash 10. So this is n is nothing but the next next space, okay, and this is a next tab. So you can see we get here one tab. Well, so you can print it, okay. N means next line and T mean tab, okay. So now the question is, how can you access the value of that of this string? So let's comment out those lines right now. So let's say country equal to, let's say, Brazil, because this is right now the World Cup season. So let's use my favorite team name, Brazil. So let's say I am trying to access the value of B, R, A, G, I, L. So the string is nothing but contained inside the Python script like one kind of indexes. So you can actually access the each value from that. So for that, you need to use here the index value. So if I'm actually using here country, this bracket 0, so it will actually initialize this index number 0. That's in B. If I'm trying to print it out, you can see here, okay, we don't print it here. So you need to also print it out. So let's say print the country 0. So I can get here value as a B. You can say B. If I actually using here 1, so I can get here value as a R. Again 2, I get here value as A. So you can see here R. Okay, this one. If I'm trying to use here the 5, so you can see I get here value as L. And if actually using here the 6, I got an error because this is the out of index. That's mean our string length is nothing but 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means 0 to 5. That means 6. But the index is out of the string because it is 6. So index is start from 0. So that's why 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now the question is, you can see a string out of range. So that's mean when the string is out of range, you can print the index. Okay. So now the question is, how can you print them from the one value to another value? Let's say I'm trying to print here Brazil, or let's say Brach. So how can I print them? So for that, I need to start from zeroth index, and I need to go on the index number 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I'm actually using here 3, and you can see I got here BRA, but I actually miss here BRA, I miss here the jet. Why? Because how I actually go to the 0 to 3, I just access here 0, 1, 2, and 3. Not 3 here, just 2. So if I actually use here 4, okay, so I can access here 0 to 3. It's in 4 value. So if I run the code here, and you can see brass. Let's say make it Argentina. And you can see here, if I'm trying to access it, and you can see ARGE. Access the value from 0 to 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I'm trying to actually print it from 1 to 4, so there should be 1, 2, and 3. So GRGE. Okay, and you can see here RGE. Okay, so this is the access point. How can you actually access them, right? So if I actually using here, let's say 2, just this colon, so it will actually print from 2 to rest of them. So you can see here Jantina. Okay, that's mean 2 to rest of them. Okay, 0, 1, and 2, and rest of them, it will print them. So if you actually use here 3, you can see here, after that it will print here. So if I am actually using here the -1, so it will print the last index A. If I'm trying to use here 2, so it will print the last 2 index NA. That's N. If I actually use here dot, this operator, and you can see here NA, that's been -2 and this sign on, it's just going to print it out. Okay, so this is nothing but called the value access of the string. Okay, and we can also use here the, let's say, minus string. Just use it, and you can see here INA. So how can you actually access the value from the string? So this is really boring, I know, but this is quite informative. So now you're going to see that how can you format the string. Just how can you actually format one string here? Let's say Argentina. Okay, let's say Neymar, or let's say Pele. Okay, Pele is, let's say, GOAT. Okay, it's not a goat. Okay, this is GOAT, greatest of at the all time. Okay, so let's say Pele is greatest of all the time, is Brazilian footballer. So let's say I am trying to make it format. Okay, so let's say Pele is GOAT and he is a Brazilian. So I'm just trying to print it out. So let's say if I'm trying to print it, let's say print the, okay, let's make it player. If I'm trying to print it out, let's say print the player name. So you can see here Pele is GOAT. Okay, so I just wanted to make it Pele is GOAT and he is a Brazilian footballer. Okay, so let's say I am trying to make it, let's say, pass, or I can use here comma, and let's say he is an he is a Brazilian footballer, right? So I'm trying to print it out, and you can say Pele is a GOAT and he is a Brazilian footballer. Okay, well, and you can see here it's called the string formatting. So let's say use here another one. So let's say Messi is a, so I'm trying to make it, let's say Messi is a GOAT player. Okay, so let's say is a GOAT footballer. Okay, so you can see here Messi is a GOAT footballer. You can see here also spaces. You can also use this player outside them. So let's say
I know, okay, I know Messi is a goat footballer, right? So let's say I can use here the comma and the player. Okay, so let's say I know Messi is a good player, footballer, right? So now if I am trying to use here the format string or format sign, a specifier that you are actually using the C programming language, you can also use that. So let's say this is string, so you can use here the modular sign S, and you need to also use here the modular sign here. So if I'm trying to actually use here and just trying to print it out, you don't need to use here comma here. So if I'm trying to print it, you can see I know Messi is a good footballer. You can also use this one, right? Format a specifier. So if you're trying to print here the string, you can use here ampersand this modulo sign as. If I'm trying to use here integer, you can use here modulo version D. And if you're trying to use here for the float, you can actually use here percentage F, right? So now we are going to see that how can we actually using this format specifier here. So let's say take on number, just a simple number. Let's say number equal to, let's say 437.656, nothing else. Okay, so I am trying to print it right now. So let's say print the number. If I'm trying to print it out, and you can see here the number. Let's say I am trying to print the last two number of the digit after the point. So how can we actually do that? So for that we can use here this specifier. So let's say percentage point to F. Okay, and just I'm going to actually use here the rest of the two numbers. So if I'm trying to use here, you can see here 2F. Okay, we got one error here. So we need to also use here this ampersand sign here and also remove this. Let's run the code right now. You can see here 467.57. We just got here the two after the two values. Okay, if I'm actually using here 3, so I can got the value as the 467.567 like that, or 588, because this 7 is nothing but less than 8, so that's why to make it 8. If I make it 4, and you can see here we got the value with the fourth value, last fourth value, we actually got it, right? So now how can you take the input from the users? We already know that. How can you take that? Then using that we can also our manipulate our string also. So let's say taking one input from the users. So let's say user equal to taking the input. So let's say input. So I am trying to actually, let's say, enter your name. Okay, let's say enter your first name, right? Enter your first name, and also let's say enter your second name. Okay, let's make it user 1. And now I am trying to add to them. Let's say user plus user 1. Okay, so let's run the code here. Enter your first name. So let's say Mishu. Enter your first name, or there should be second name here. So let's say Dhar, and you can see here Mishu Dhar, right? So now we can actually make it formatting. So let's say we can actually use here, let's say hello, okay, comma, and we can use here this plus sign. Okay, so hello, and let's say user number, this one, and let's say user. Okay, so if I'm trying to print it, so let's you enter your first name, let's say Mishu, and enter your second name, that's the third. So hello Mishu. Okay, okay, this should be user 1. So you can also give here one space. So for that you can actually use this space. And if I'm trying to run this out, let's say Chandu Dar, and you can say hello Chandu Dar. So you can take the input from the user and also you make it format. Okay, so there is another way to format that. So let's see this out also. So let's say print, let's say hello. You can use this sign, okay, and use here one function that's called format, and inside this you can actually pass here your this value user, and you can also give here user one also. For that you need to use here the two bracket. So let's say hello Mishudhar. So I just use here this plus sign and also this one. Okay, if I'm trying to actually run this code here right now, enter your first name, so let's say Misho, and let's say Dhar, and you can see here hello Mishu plus plus Dhar. Okay, it is actually printing this one, and in this format is here actually taking the space as one. You don't need to actually put here. So if I'm trying to run this code again, so let's say Chando, let's say Dhar, and you can see here hello Chandudar. So you can also use this one, you can also use this one, it's up to you. I think it's quite better. You can actually use this format function, or you can say format method.
So our next topic is Python list. So what is the Python list actually? So Python list is a smart data type in Python. So the reason is called the smart because it has many practical applications. You can use here mixed type of data type in other programming language or C++ or Java. May I notice there is a thing called array, but in Python there is no array. And also in array you just store one kind of data type. But in Python list you can store mixed type of data type. It can be integer, it can be float, or it can be double, or it can be string. So that's why Python list is more smarter than other programming language. Although we call it list is a data type, but list actually belong to the Python built-in data structure. So now we're going to see that how can you use the list in Python programming language. So now let's discuss about the list in Python. So now we're going to do the coding here. So let's see how can you implement the list in Python. So for that, let's create here one Python file. Let's say list class.py. So when you're trying to initialize one list in Python, you need to use here the third bracket, this third bracket, and inside this bracket you can actually give it some values. So let's say initialize into inside one variable that's called a equal to one empty list. So if I'm trying to print it type to check this out, what is it? So just type inside this type method, just pass here a. So if I run the code here, and you can see your type is nothing but one list. Okay, so this is one empty list. Okay, so now inside this list I can actually give here some values. So let's say give here value as, let's say Chandu. Okay, so if I am trying to print it, let's say a and run, you can see a Chandu, and let's give here another name, let's say give here Chaiti. Okay, and let's give here another name, let's say Mesho. Okay, so if I run the code here, you can see here all the name is appeared on here. So now if I'm trying to give here some integer or double or float value, so let's say 0, 1.2, something else. If I run the code here, you can see here it can. But in other programming languages like C or C++ or Java, you cannot put here the mixed type of data type. So this is the basic advantage of using list in Python. And Python doesn't use any array. So it uses that list. So now the question is, how can we access the value from here? So in order to access the value, we can use here the index number. So let's say A1. Okay. So we can click here and you can see here Chaiti is the number one index. If I actually give here value as 0, so just run the code here and you can see here Chandu, right? So I got here the value of index number 0. Okay, so let's give here another name also. So let's give here some name. So let's give here Shanto. Let's give here another name, let's say Ontu. Okay, and let's give here, try to run this out, and you can see here some syntax error. Okay, I need to just pass here comma here. So let's run the code here and you can see here Chandu. Okay, so if I'm trying to access the element from 1 to 5, so let's say 1 to 5, so I can just use this one. Okay, and you can see here Chaiti, Mishu, Shanto, and Antu. That's are actually printed here. Okay, from 1 to 5. So 1 to 5 mean 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just 4 index, not 5, right? So if I start from 0, so it will start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so start from 0. So you can see around the code, you can see Chandu, Chaiti, Mishu, Shanto, and Antu, right? So now the question is, how can you print from the last element? So just we can use here -1. Okay, so if I use here, you can see minus 1.2, sorry, 1.2. So it is the last index. If I actually give here 2, and you can see here, I can print here the second index. So if I use here the colon, you can see here, it will actually print the rest of them, just mean 0 to 1.2.
Simple. You can also check this type also. Type also be type of different data type. That's mean if you are trying to check this out, the what will be the first index value and what is the type of that. So you can actually also check this out. So let's say first index is nothing but one is string. So if I'm trying to check this out, let's say type of this first index. So if I run the code here, and you can see here this is one string. So if I'm checking the last one, so how can you check that? This one simple -1. Okay, run the code here. You can see here class is nothing but float. Simple. You can also check the data from here. Okay, so now we can check that how can you update the value at the list. So let's say I am trying to change the name of that value. So let's say if I am trying to change the value of zeroth position value equal to, let's say I'm trying to change the zeroth position value, that's mean trying to replace this value with another name. Okay, so let's actually give here another name. Let's call Mona. Okay, so if I'm trying to run the code here, and you can see here our class is right now printed as 0 Mona. And if I'm trying to print it, and you can see here Mona, Chaiti, Mishu, Shanto, Antu. Right, it's real awesome. Okay, so you can see here this is really cool, this is really awesome. Okay, so you can also change it. Let's say I'm going to change this Chaiti to Jamie. So let's say 1. So let's say Jamie. Okay, just on the code here, and you can see here it changed the name. Well, so this is called the updated list. How can you actually update a list in Python? Okay, so now we are going to check that out, that how can you actually assign here some values. So let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's say I am trying to assign here another value. So let's say inside the 6th position, let's say I'm trying to give here on value, let's call Srizan. Okay, just run the code here, and you can see here value is updated. But if I'm trying to actually give it here 7 as a Srizan, you can see here list assignment index out of range, because the length of the string or length of list is nothing but 6. So I cannot actually access the 7th element. So how can I actually add them in the last of that? So you can actually use here one function, or you can say method, that's called append method. So for that I need to use here a.append, and inside this I am just going to pass here Srizan. Well, so if I run the code here, and you can see Srizan is add at the last. So now the question is, I'm trying to add the name between after the Jamie 0, 1, and 2. So how can I do that? I can actually use here another method or function. You can call method or functions. That's called the insert. So let's say insert. So this insert take the position. See if I'm trying to run the code fast. Let's say just trying to run this code. And you can see I got an error because insert accepted 2 arguments as the positions. You first need to give here the positions and your value. So I'm trying to give here the position as 2. After the 2, I'm just going to pass it here. So let's say Mona, Jamie, and Srizan. You can see here, right? So because this list is actually updated, so if I comment out this line and just run the code here, and you can see here Chando, Chaiti, Srizan, Mishu, Chando, Ontu, and rest of them. Okay, so it actually inserted the value at the middle of the list, right? So let's say I'm just actually put here one values. So if I am trying to actually give you multiple type of values, that's in multiple values, how can I do that? So you can actually use here extend. So let's say a.extend. Just I am going to actually extend here some value. So let's say I'm trying to extend here 2 values or 3 values. So for that, I need to actually use here the third bracket. And if it is third bracket, I need to pass here the value. Let's say Sadia, or let's say Jarin, let's say Neymar. Okay. Okay, so just I'm trying to run the code here right now. And you can see here all the values added at the last of the name. Sadia, Jorin, and the Neymar. Well, so all the value is actually added here as extend. So using the append method, you can actually add the value as the last of the list. Using the insert, you can actually add here the value at specific positions. And using the extend, you can also add the value of the rest of them, but it's not single one. You can add here multiple types of value, right? But there is another way to actually add that. So let's comment out this line. So you can actually use here the plus sign or plus operation. So I just actually copy this out. Just copy this out. Control C, and I'm going to paste it here. This is another way. So you can see here same result we actually got here. Okay, we got the one error. So it actually changes So a equal to Sadia is not actually added here. So for that, you need to also assign this inside the a value, because we are just changing, adding that, but not changing in our initial value. So that's why it's not changes. Right now you can see here changes: Sadia, Jordan, and Neymar. Right? Well, so now the question is, how can you actually delete the value from here? So this is our list that we actually changes something here. Okay. So now I'm trying to delete one value from here. So let's say delete one value. Let's say Shanto. I'm just going to delete the Shanto from this list. So how can I do that? We can use here del a, and we need to pass here the position of the value. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Simple. I just pass here 3. Okay. So now if I'm trying to print it here, and you can see here Shanto is gone. Well, and again, let's say 4. So let's say 4, and trying to run the code here, and you can see here 4 is gone. Okay, 4 is gone. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is gone actually, because 4 is right now 0. So that's why fourth position is gone, and now third position is actually replaced to the 4. So that's why Mishu onto is okay, but 0 is gone, because it's the fourth index, because Shantu is gone. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's why 0 is gone. Well, so you can also use here another method that's called the remove. You can also remove their specific value. So let's say a dot remove. I'm just going to remove here the Shanto. You just need to pass here the value. So I'm going to remove this name. You can see here Shanto is removed from the list. Okay. You can also use here another method that's called pop. So this pop is actually using one data structure like stack. So it will actually pop the value from the last of the list. So you can see here, just it will pop the last value from the list. Well, so we can also check the length of the list. So for that, what I can do, we can actually use here the method that's called the length. So how can you do that? So let's say length of the list of a. So how many value is actually here? So I'm just going to comment out this line, and you can see here 7. There's a 7 value here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Well, so you can also count it normal. So let's say a dot count. Okay, so inside this count you are going to count the number of a specific value. So let's say I'm just going to count my name Chandu, and also just comment out this line, and this is our list, right? So you can see here 1, because Chandu is actually present in here one time. So if I make it again, okay, just comment out, also just copy this one. Okay, just copy this one and paste it here. Let's I am also copy this name Chaiti and just paste it here. Okay, so now if I'm trying to run the code, you can see here right now 4, because Chandu is actually present here the 4th time. Okay, Chaiti is gone. So let's say Chaiti, and also try to copy this out. So now Chaiti is 2 time, and also Chandu is 2 time. Okay, so you can see here, let's create code. You can also check this out, the two values are equal or not. So how can you do that? It's really simple. So let's say the count of value equal to the count of value of JT. So let's say like that. So it's equal or not. So it actually assign here one, it actually return here one value as a true or false if the length of this 2 item count is equal. So you can see here, so right? It's really cool right now. You can also check this out. So now the last element, it's called the reverse. You can also reverse that. So if I'm trying to reverse this list, let's say I'm trying to reverse this list here. So how can I do that? Okay, using here one method that's called reverse, normal, reverse. So reverse this one and run the code here, and it will reverse the whole list. Okay, none, why? Okay, well, it is not working because first we need to reverse this, and after that we can actually print it. First you need to reverse that, and after that we can print that. It not print inside the method, and you can see I already printed out yet. So you can see it reverse the input. You can also sort it based on the items. So it actually sort it. Okay, sort not support between the int and string. Okay, the sort method is actually not supported because list actually supported list the mixed type of data type. So that's why it's not supported here. So you just need to put here one single item of value. So let's assign here another value. So let's say number equal to, let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3. Let's say uh, 2 again, and 9 or 4 or 6 or 20 or 67, like that, 6. Let's try to make this different so that we can actually sort it out. Let's run the code here. Okay, that should be numbers. Okay, just going to print it out the numbers. So how can I sort them? You don't need to actually use here the code to sort these algorithms. Okay, you can see here our list is right now sorted. So you can also use here this method to sort your list. And we also discuss about the reverse one. So basically how you actually reverse the code or reverse the list, we can actually use here the for loops. We actually use a two pointer approach to sort them, or not to reverse them. But in short, we can actually use a bubble sort or quick sort or merge sort, like that. But in this case, you don't need to actually do the whole code. Just use here one method that's called sort. Okay, so this is all about the list. uh, so I hope you enjoy this one. So our next topic is nothing but tuple. So tuple is more similar than list. It's also awesome. So let's jump on that. So now we are going to discuss about the Python tuples. A tuples is also a type of list. So the question may arise that Python have already list. So why should you use here the tuples? I know this question is very intelligent and also logical. However, tuple is not changeable, whereas list is changeable. That's mean you can change the list in runtime, but you cannot change the tuple. So that's the basic difference between list and tuple. Also, list use the third packet and tuple use the first packet. So now let's see the implementation of tuple in VS Code. So now you're going to see that how can you implement one tuple in Python. So for that, let's create here one Python file. Let's say tuple class.py. So when you actually initialize here on list, we simply use here the third bucket. Now you're going to use here the first bucket. So let's say this first bucket, simple tuple, and inside this tuple, we can actually give here some values. So let's assign into one variable that's called a equal to one empty tuple. And if I'm trying to see the type of that, and also, tuple is one data type, or you can say data structure in Python, right? So run the code, you can see your class is nothing but tuple. Okay, cool. So now let's try to add here some values. So I'm going to add here some value. Let's say Chando. Let's say again same name. Let's say Chaiti, and let's say another name. Let's call Mishu, and let's say Ganesha. Okay, and let's add here another name. Let's call Shiba. So if I'm trying to print it, let's try to print it out and run the code. You can see here Chando, Chaiti, Mishu, Ganesha, and the Shiba is printed. So if I'm trying to add here 0 or 1 and also try to print it, you can see here it also printed. That's mean again the list is also the mixed type of data structure, and also tuple is a mixed type of data structure. You can actually give here string, float, or double, or in any kind of data structure data type in one single tuple, right? So now the problem is list is changeable but tuple is not changeable. We can also access the value here. So let's try to do that. Let's say 1. So the 1 is nothing but Chaiti. Okay, you can also check this type of that. So let's say type that we do in the list class. Okay, so just try to print it out. You can see here class is nothing but only string, so you can actually change it, right? So if I am trying to initialize this one, that's me replace this value with another name. So let's say new, normal, just new. If I'm trying to print it out, that's mean we are trying to change the value of the tuple of the position number 1. So if I run the code here, and you can see a tuple object does not support item assignment. That's mean it not supported. You cannot change the value in the runtime. So now the question is, how can I actually replace them? How can I actually replace them? So we can actually add the value of the last of them. Okay, we can actually add it. So how can I actually add it? So we can simply add it just using the plus operator, and we can actually give here the value. So let's say give your value as new. So if I run the code here, and you can see here, okay, it can only concatenate tuple, not string to the tuple. Okay, so we can actually concatenate with one simple value with tuple. So for that, I need to actually make it inside on the a. And now if I run the code, okay, we got the same error. Okay, if I'm trying to change it to the, let's say new. Okay, we got this error because we actually miss here one comma here. We need to also give here one comma so that it actually added. So if I run the code here right now, you can see here it actually added this new the last of the index. So that's one problem in tuple. You can also count them. You can count that how many index actually value is actually present here. So for that we can actually use here just add or count. So you can actually count the value from here. Let's say Chando, and just going to run the code here, and you can see here right now value is 1. So if I'm trying to actually make it also, let's try to paste it out here, and if I run the code here, you can see here too. That's mean this is the basic tuple class, okay? Because this is really simple rather than list, because in the list you can actually give here so many kind of values. So higher as you cannot use them in the tuple, okay? So if I'm trying to use here the reverse, let's say you can see a reverse is not actually present here. And again, if I'm trying to use here the short, okay, you cannot use here in tuple. And also if I'm trying to check the length of the a, I can check this out, okay? So you can see here check of the length is nothing but right 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and also new is added, that's why 9. So that's mean in tuple you cannot do the same thing as a list. So how you're trying to, you're going to you don't not to actually change anything here, you just make your code remain constant or your value remain constant, you can actually use a tuple. So, but how you're trying to change some code or trying to change the values of that, you can actually use your list. So now our next topic is set. So our next topic is Python sets. So what is sets? A sets is a data type in Python, much like as a list or also the tuple. But the basic difference between set and the list is list can contain the same item in the multiple times. So whereas set can contain a member of item just only once. That's mean in the list you can actually add here the duplicate values, but in set you can't. So now let's see how can you implement it in Python and do some operations on that. So now let's see how can we implement the set in Python. So for that I am going to create here one Python file here. So let's say set class.py. Well, so we actually initialize the list as a third bracket and tuple as a first bracket. And now for the set, we actually use the curly brackets. That means second bracket. So for that, what I can do, we can use this second bracket or you can say curly brackets. And let's give here one variable name a equal to this curly brackets. And if I'm trying to print it type, let's see one interesting thing, type of a. And if I'm trying to print it, you can see here type is right now dict. That's been dictionary. Why? We know that we can actually declare one set using this second bracket, but we actually get here class as dictionary. Why? So let's actually put here one value. Let's say my name. So now one more interesting, just notice it. If I run the code here, you can see a class is right now set. But why I am printing it the first time as a null one? Why it should print as a dictionary? Because you cannot print the null set in the set class of, that is set data type in Python. You just need to put here one value, then it will actually initialize at one set. Otherwise, it will actually initialize it as a dictionary. So later on in the next topic, we actually discuss about the dictionary one. Then you can actually understand this thing very well. So one more important thing is set cannot be null in Python class. That means this Python class, set class. Okay. So you can also initialize it using this set method. Okay. So if I'm trying to initialize into another variable, let's call type of B. And you can see here it's also class of set, right? So now we can actually add here more value. So let's add here more value. So let's say Mishu, let's say again Chaiti, let's add here Shanto, let's add here Jamie. Well, so we can now, if I'm trying to print it, just a, and you can see here we can actually print it correctly. Shanto, Jamie, Mishu, Chandu, and Chaiti. But you can see we first index is nothing but Chaiti, Chandu, and Mishu, and Chaiti, and Shanto, and Jamie. But you can see here it is nothing but actually change it straight. That can change the index of that. So if I am trying to actually copy this Chandu from here and going to paste it here, and if I run the code here, and you can see here Chandu is one time, but in our set it have Chandu as two time. That's mean Set is taking just one single element, one at a time. But in list, you can actually store the multiple element that's been duplicate element in the same time. So that's our basic difference between list and the set. Okay. So let's assign here some values. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I'm trying to print it, let's say B, and try to print it, you can see here set accepted one argument got 8. Okay. So we need to actually initialize it inside one bracket. Okay. Okay, sorry, this is the second bracket, right? Curly brackets. So let's give here this one. And if I am trying to run the code, and you can see it also printed. Now, let's say I am going to actually give here one value, let's say 1 comma 3, like that. So if I try to run the code here, you can see here 1 to 8. That's mean 1 is 2 times, but it not printed yet, right? Well, so now the question is, how can you actually access the element of set? So if I am trying to access the element of A1, okay, and you can see here you got an error, set object is not subscriptable. That's when you cannot actually access the value from here, right? That's one disadvantage of using the set. Okay. Now if I'm trying to add here one value, rest of them, so how can I actually add them? So let's comment out this line. Let's say I'm going to add here another name here. So for that you can use here this add method. So let's say I'm going to add here one name, another name. So let's say add here season. Well, so now if I'm trying to print it, so let's say try to print the A, okay, and try to run the code here, and you can see here Chando, Mishu, and Chaiti, Chando, Jami, and the season is added, okay, at the last of the index. Based on that, because it actually make it what I call in a increasing order, okay, it actually rearrange them. So if I'm trying to make it as 8 and also try to see the B, and you can see 8 is not present at the first, just it actually make it shorted, okay, in a shorted way. So that's also one important of using the set here. So we can, let's see another method in set that's called the update. You can also update the value of the set. And one more interesting thing that I actually missed here, that is, let's say a equal to let's say simple name, let's say Chandu, okay, or let's say using here this set method, let's say set method, and let's say Chandu, like that. Okay, using the set method. So if I'm trying to print it, let's say a equal to Chandu. If I'm trying to print it out, you can see here a d c h o n. It actually split the all the value from this string, and it will make one set, right? So how I actually give here any kind of value like that, it actually make it as a set, right? You can see it actually make it as a set. Cool. So that's one advantage of using set here. Okay. So if you're trying to short it, let's say a dot short, you can see here short is not available here. So if you're trying to short this set, you need to actually make this set should be in a list. Okay, so let's say how can you actually make it? That's called typecasting. If you're trying to change this set in a list, you can also do that. So let's say set. Now if you can see here converting the set. So now you can short it. So let's say using the short method. And now if I'm trying to print it out, and you can see here our list is shorted. Okay, you can also check this out if there are any duplicate value or not. So using this set, you can also remove the duplicate element from your list. That's one important thing. How can you remove the duplicate element from the list? So first you need to convert this list into one set, and after making this set again make it list, then you can short it. Simple. You can also remove the duplicate element from here. You can also reverse them. So let's say reverse it, because list is actually supported the reverse one. You can see here our list is right now reverses. Well, that's really fine. So now we are going to check the next method that's called the update method. So I'm going to just comment out this line. Okay, so let's say a dot update. So I'm going to just update the value of Chandu to Dhar, like that. So let's say Chandu. I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to add here Chandu. Oh, okay, sorry, to Dhar. Okay. So let's comma and just paste it here. So now if I'm trying to update it, just update it. Okay, first let's cut this sound, and I'm going to just make it here and just run the code here. And you can see here the problem is happening here. The Chandu is actually breaking down. C, H, A, N, D, and O is breaking down. But I'm trying to add it. That's mean I'm going to update with Chandu with Dhar. So how can I do that? So for that, we need to also use it one curly brackets. Then it will actually update it. Then it will actually update it. If I run the code here, Shanto, Srijan, Chando, Mishu, Chaiti, Jamie, and Dhar. That's mean you can actually add here the Dhar, rest of them. Okay. So you can update the value using this formula. Okay. Just add dot update. Now if I'm trying to actually remove one value from here, let's say remove. So I can actually use this remove method. So let's say I'm going to remove here the Dhar. Okay. Because this is added here. So you can see a Dhar is gone. Well, that's really fine. So there's another element, or you can say another method. It's called the discard. You can also use the discard method. So comment out this line. Also, I'm going to comment out this lines also, and also comment out this line also. So let's say I'm going to remove this dhar. If I run the code here, you can see here no element called dhar because it is not present inside our list. Sorry, inside our set. So how can I do that? We're just going to make it Chandu. And on the code, you can see here Chandu is removed from the list. Sorry, why I am actually actually pronounce it as a list? It's called set. So there is another method same as the list, that's called pop method. Okay, so it will actually pop the last element from the value. So Chaiti, Shanto, Jamie, and the Mishu, and Chandu is gone. Okay, because this is present at the last of the index. That's why it's pop it. Okay, so you can also make it clear. So if I'm trying to make it clear, that's when you can clear this. Just clear it. Now you can see your empty set. So now the most important thing is maybe in the class 7 or 8 or the 11th or 12th class, you do the mathematics of set called some operation, union, intersection, and the difference. You can also do it using this set data structure in Python. So how can you do that? Let's see. So let's comment out these lines also. So now I am going to take two set. So let's say we have one set called A. So we have value, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have another set. So let's say we have value as a 3, 4, 7, and 8. Okay. So now we're going to do the operation of union. So let's say union operation of B. Okay. And I'm going to try to print it out. Just going to print it out. So let's say print this one. And I'm going to just run the code here. And you can see here, this is the union. It should take all the values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the answers. So if I'm actually making at intersections, so what will be the output? It actually taking the common one. So common is nothing but 3 and 4. So let's say you're trying to check the difference between them. So what are the difference between them? So 3 and 4 is gone. So difference is 1, 2, and 5, 6. Simple. 1, 2, and 5, 6. So this is the basic mathematics. You can also do it using this set data structure in Python. So next one, we are going to discussing about the dictionary one. So this is the last data structure in Python. So you already covered list, you already covered tuple, and right now is the set, and last one is called dictionary. Well, so now let's discuss about the Python dictionary. So what is the dictionary? So dictionary in Python is a collection of key values used to store value like a map. That's mean in the dictionary, it can hold the pair of values, one having the keys and also the corresponding pair element called value. It's also called the key value pair. In other data structure like list, you can access the element based on the index. But in dictionary, you can access the element based on the key. That means you have one key and also the value. If you access the key, you can get the value. So now let's see how can you implement in Python. So okay, well, so now let's create here one empty Python file. So let's say dict, let's say class.py. So now let's create one dictionary. So in the last class, we actually discussed about the set class. That means set data structure in Python. So in sets and dictionary, most are similar. Most are similar, but the set is not actually using any key or value pair. and it also store the unique element. But the difference between the set and the class is it also uses the actually the curly brackets. But in the set you don't need to put here the key and value, but in the dictionary you need to put here the key and value pair. So now if I am trying to print it type, so it should be one dictionary. Okay, so it should be one dictionary. Let's run the code here, and you can see here dictionary. But how can I actually give here one single element? Let's say my name, single element. So it will actually one set. But how can I am actually give here one key and also the value? Let's say my key is right now name, and you need to use here one semicolon. So this is the right side, left side, and also the right side. Inside that you need to give here one colon. So this right now this is key and this is right now value. So how I try to print it type, you can see here right now is dictionary, not a set. That means how are you actually using as a key and value pair? It's called dictionary, otherwise it's called the set. Now you can see here the name is Chandu. Now let's add here another one. So let's say nickname. Okay, and this is the key, and let's give here value. So let's say my name is nothing but okay, let's say Mishudhar, and nickname is Chandu. Well, and also let's add here mail, and let's give you an example mail. I'll say let's say Chandu at the rate of gmail.com. Well, so now if I'm trying to print it out, let's say a and run the code, and you can see here one normal dictionary is appeared on here. So you can also create a dictionary using the dict this dict method. You can also create one dictionary. So let's say b equal to dict, and let's say b. And now if you run the code here, you can see one empty dictionary is appear on here, right? So let's say I am trying to access the value of name. So how can I actually access them? So in the list, we can access the element based on the index. But here we can actually access the element based on our key. So this is our name. So now if I am trying to print this out, just cut this out and going to paste it inside the print function. Okay, and now if I click here, you can see here Mishudhar is the nothing but the value of the key. Okay, so if I'm trying to change this Mishudhar to the another name, so let's say how can I do that? So this is called the updating. So I need to just give here my key. So let's say key that I am going to change this, and I'm going to pass here one value. So let's say Jamie. Okay, let's run the code here, and you can see right now the value is nothing but Jamie. That means it replaces the value. So if I'm trying to remove this name right now and run the code here, and you can see your name is right now converted into Jamie. Well, that's really good. Now you can also add here the value here. So let's say I'm trying to add here on my hometown. So let's say hometown. So let's say my hometown is nothing but Coxbazar. So Coxbazar, Bangladesh. Okay, Coxbazar. Let's run the code here, and you can see here my hometown is added at the end of the dictionary. So this is how you can actually add the another key and value in your dictionary, right? So now let's say I am trying to add two more columns in one single line. That's been hometown and also my favorite programming language like Python. So how can I do that in a single line? So let's say I am trying to create one new variable. Let's say b equal. So I am going to first add my hometown here. So let's say hometown. Okay. Let's say my hometown and also my favorite programming language. So let's say my hometown is Coxbazar. Okay, and let's say add here my favorite language. Let's say favorite programming language, or let's say favorite programming. So let's say it's obviously Python. Okay, so let's say Python. Okay, so now I am trying to add those two. Okay, b. So how can I do that? If I'm using here a plus b, let's see a plus b, and trying to print it out. Let's say just print it out and run the code here, and you can see here unsupported operand. You cannot actually add the dot dictionary, right? So how can you do that? So this is called the updation. So in order to do the updation part, you can actually do using one method that's called update. So let's say update and inside this I'm going to pass here the B. So now if I'm trying to run this or just print the A, then you can see here this hometown and also my favorite programming language is also added at here, okay, at the A. So this is called the updation. So now I am trying to delete here something from my dictionary. So let's say I'm going to delete my name here. So let's say I'm going to delete my name. So I'm using here dal, this dal one, dal keyword, and delete this. Now you can see here my name is actually gone on here. Okay, so this is one just gone on from here, and you can also delete it in another way also, or you can also clear it. So let's try to delete it in another way. So let's say name, or let's say another function is available here, remove. Okay, you can see a remove is not available here, or discard is not also available here. Just you can actually use this del keyword and delete it. Okay, so if you're trying to clear it, let's say just clear it, clear your whole dictionary, you can use here add.clear, that's mean this clear, and it will clear all the items from your dictionary, right? So now you can also take one copy from your dictionary. So let's say I'm going to take one copy, just this dictionary. I'm just going to take a copy, and after that I am trying to clear it. Let's say I'm trying to clear it, and now I am going to print it. So same result, you using this one, you can actually get one copy of your dictionary. So if I'm trying to copy this out, just copy or cut it, and trying to print it here, you can see here we actually got the same copy of the dictionary. So this is one simple method of copy. So let's say we can also use here another method without using any index. You can also use here a method that's called get. You don't need to use here the index, you just use this get method. So let's say I'm just going to get this name from my dictionary. You can see here Mishudar. Okay, you can use this, and let's say I am trying to searching one keyword that is not available here. So it's not available here. Let's say phone number. Okay. So I'm trying to get the value from here. So if I run the code here, you can see here none. Okay. You can see here none, because this get value, if you see here, this get have two parameter as argument. Okay. First one is your number, and by default is none. If there is no value is available, you can get any keyword key, it actually give here the value as a none. Okay, you can see here key string, and default value is nothing but none, this none. That's why it actually give here as a none, because phone number is not available here. You can also change this default value to anything. Let's say not available. Okay, not available. If I run the code here, and you can see here not available, because phone number is right now not available inside our dictionary. You can change, you can just give here one default message here. Okay, so now let's check this out. I'm trying to searching one keyword that is available inside the app. How can I actually get it? We can get it using this get method, and also there is another way to get it. So let's say uh, phone. Okay, phone, this means this keyword in a. Okay, in a. So is it really true or not? It's really false. That's when it actually give here answer as a false. So let's say print phone in a. So inside a, phone is available, not available. So it will give me a false. So let's say name is available, and you can say true. So let's say use this Chando. It's available in a. See one thing, one important thing. You can see here false. Why? Because Chando is value. It can actually checking the key one, not the value one, right? It's just checking this. So it have another method that's called the items. So you can also use these methods items. So it will actually print the all item based on the dictionary. You can see it is this item, and name Mishudor and nickname Chandu. It will actually make it one in a formative way. So there is another method that's called the keys. That's mean how many keys. You can also check this out. So for that you can use add.keys. You can see here the keys that is available inside your dictionary: name, nickname, and mail. And also you can check the values. Okay, values. Run the code. You can see here the values. So we can also print it out. So just make it add.keys, and you can see here items. is printed and the keys and the values. Cool. So this is all about the dictionary, Python dictionary data structure. So the 4 data structure is actually completed yet: list, tuple, set, and the dictionary. And the next one we are going to discussing about the conditional statement like if and else. So now we're going to discuss about the Python conditional logic. So conditional logic means if else. So in Python, so there are 3 forms of if and else statement. So first statement is called if. Second statement you can use if and also the else. And third one is called if elif. Elif mean in other programming language it's called the else if. And final one that's called the else statement. And also Python support the usual logical condition from the mathematics like equals, not equals, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. You can actually use these inside your if and else conditions. So in Python, you have 3 conditional statements. You already see it. So each has a different meaning and function. So let's take a look. If you use here if it is true, then do it. Elif, that's mean else if the condition of is not true, then do it. Elif always comes from after if. So when your if condition is actually false, then the else if condition is actually executed. So when all the condition is going to be filled, then the else condition is to be executed. So this is the basic syntax of if, elif, and the else statement. You can see here after if, you need to give here an expressions or your mathematical logic functions, then one semicolon, then in the statement. Again the elif, and the else. So now we're going to see that how can we implement it in our PS Code. So you can already see here I create one file here, conditional class, and also you can see here one questions, right? So let's think about a problem. We assign 5 to a variable. Okay, let's assign it. Let's say a equal to 5. Now if the value of the variable is less than 10, then print is less than 10 on the screen, on the output screen. So how do you do the job? Yes, we can use here conditional logic. So we have the question that we need to assign here a value inside one variable a equal to 5. So if the value is greater than or less than, if the value of variable is less than 10, so we need to print here which one we need to print is less than 10. Okay, print a is less than 10. Okay, less than 10. But we see there's some error is coming up. So let's run the code here. And you can see here unexpected and intent block. So why actually happening here? You can see here how I actually use here on semicolon. We need to also give here some space. That's called the indentation error. Okay, so in Python, so how you actually use here one statement. So make sure that you need to use here one tab, normal tab, or you can use here the 4. You can see here you can use here 4 space, 1 2 3 4. Okay, 4 space you can use that, or you can use here one simple tab. Okay, then your statement will be executed here. So if I now run the code here, and you can see here a is less than 10. So now if I'm trying to make it, let's say 15, and try to run the code here, and you can see here nothing is printed. Why? Because 15 is not less than 10, it's greater than 10. So that's why it's not printing anything, right? So if you're trying to print anything, let's say a is greater than 10, you wanted to print that. So what should we need to use here? You need to use here else block. So if it is true, then do it. If it is false, then do it. So print, you're going to print it, which one? A is greater than 10. So let's copy this out, and now I'm going to paste it here, and also let's make it greater than. Okay, if I'm now run the code here, you can see A is greater than 10. Well, so if you're trying to add here more conditions, another condition here, let's say I need to also check that if a is equal to 10. So how can I actually do that? So else if, but else if is not supported here, we need to use here elif. Elif a equal to 10. Okay, then I am going to print it here. I'm going to print here which one? A is equal to 10. Well, so now if I run the code here, and you can see a is greater than 10. So if I'm trying to make it 10, And on the code here, you can see here a is equal to 10. Well, fine. So we can also take the input from the users, right? So for that, what we need to do, we need to first taking the input functions, and we need to also make it typecasting. We already actually read it before in our previous classes. So let's give here one message. So let's say enter a number, and let's run the code. So enter a number. So let's say 12. So a is greater than 10. It's obviously greater than 10. So let's run the code here again. So let's give here 9. A is less than 10. So let's give here 10. So a is equal to 10. Well, fine. So there is another thing also. You can also do that. So in Python, if the answer is not null, it's actually return here true value. If the answer is null, it actually return here the false. So let's check this out. It's also so what I'm actually talking about. So let's say a equal to 5. Okay. So if a, just print here true. Okay. That's not null. Print true. Or you can also make it like that, true. Okay. So else block. See, one important thing, just watch. I'm just going to print it here false. So if I'm running the code here, you can see output is true because a is not null. So if I make it 0, let's see, you can see here false. That's mean a equal to 0. That's mean if the value is 0, the condition is executed as here it's false. That's not null. So if the value is not null, then it will return here as a true. Not null, so it will return here as a value as a true in Python. Else it will actually return you as a false, because right now you can see a value is 0. So when you have any program to solve some problems, if the value is not null, if you're trying to check this out, you can actually using this formula, right? So if a, then print true, otherwise print false. Well, that's really fine. So now also comment out these lines also. So now we are going to discuss about the nested if else. Okay, so let's give here one questions. Just you are going to following that. So the user will input a value of a. Okay, we are going to take one input from the user. So let's say input. So let's say enter a value. Okay, so nested mean we need to check the two condition is one single statement. So let's say enter a number, and let's actually make it as an integer. Okay, so what we need to do here, second line, if the value is less than 10. Okay, if the value mean a, if the value of a is less than 10, okay, we check to see if the value is divisible by 2. That's when when it is satisfied this condition, we need to also check that if this value is divisible by 2. Okay, if the value is divisible by 2, simple. Then what did it do? We need to print here if divisible print less, yes. Okay, so now I need to print here which one, less than, and also the yes. Well, if not, then less, no. Okay, just copy this out, and we need to also just remove this line here, remove this block. Well, so now the next line, there should be no. Again, if the value is greater than 10, we check if the value is divisible by 3. Okay, so if it is greater than 10, so that's mean we don't need to use here any condition here, just if else block. Then if the value is divisible by 3, then we need to print here the greater, yes, otherwise greater no. Well, so now we solve these questions. That's called the nested if else. Now let's run the code here. So enter a number. So let's say I'm going to make here 12. So it's greater, and yes, it's also divisible by 3, right? Again, so let's say 10. Greater? No. Why greater? Because this a is not is equal, so that's why it actually greater. So it's not divisible by 3. So that's why it's called greater no. So I can run the code here. So let's say age, and you can see here number is 8 and it is less than 10, and also yes, it's divisible by 2. Cool, fine. We solve the question. Well, so now we're going to solve some problems, some problem that you're going to solve using the if else. So now we're going to solve these 4 problems. So first problem is the user will input an integer. So if the number is divisible by 3 and 5, the output will be yes, otherwise the output will be no. Simple, really very simple. So let's say assigning to one variable, let's say number equal to, we are going to taking the input from the users. So this should be the integer format. So let's say int. Then what you need to do here, if the number is divisible by 3 and 5, so that's mean you need to use here condition. So if the number is divisible by 3 equal to 0, and okay, both conditions you need to satisfy, and number is also divisible by 5 equal to 0, then what I can do, we are going to print here yes, otherwise no. Okay, just so else block should be no. So print here the no. Simple. Let's run the code here. So let's give here 15. Okay, yes, it's divisible by 3 and also 5. So let's give here divisible by 3, let's say 9. No, it's divisible by 3 but not for 5. Well, so our code is working fine here. So this is the first question's answers. So this is the first question answer. So the answer of that. And now let's going to comment out these lines. Okay, second questions. So user will input a number. If the number is positive, the output will be positive. If it is negative, the output is negative. If it is 0, the output will be 0. See, there are 3 conditions. If, else if, that's mean elif, and also the else. So let's do it also. So what I can do, we are going to taking the input from the users. So let's say int and input from the users. And now we need to check that if the number is divisible or greater than. Okay, if the number is greater than 0, so this is positive number. Well, I think it's hope sense to you. So positive. If it is negative, so if it is negative, so that's mean elif number is greater than 0 or less than 0, sorry. If number is less than 0, so it is obviously one negative number. So that's called negative. Okay, so this is a negative number. So, and if it is 0, the output will be 0. So the condition 2 is satisfied, else the number should be 0. Okay, so let's try to print it out. Okay, this should be the 0. Well, fine. So let's run the code here. So let's say taking the input as a, let's say 10. So this is a positive number. Again run the code. So let's say minus 10. So this is a negative number. And let's say give here 0. So 0. Well, so our second question is also solved. That's really great. Now the third questions. So you can also pause the video and also do it in your own and also check the answer. So user will input an integer. If the number is even, the output will be the even. Otherwise, it should be the odd. Simple. Really very simple. So let's say number equal to taking the input from the users and also do it typecasting. So let's say integer. Then we need to check that if the number is even. So how the number is even? If the number is divisible by 2. If the number is divisible by 2, then the number is even. So just simple print here the even. So else just print here the odd. So what I can do, we can use here the else block. So let's say else, just simply print here the odd. Cool. So let's check this out here. So let's give here 12. So this is even number. So let's give here 9, odd number. Well, so our third question is also solved. So I am doing it fast because this is super easy. Now the final one. So this is the final questions. So let's see the questions. So user will input a character. This is alphabet, quite tough. If the character is vowel, the output will be vowel, and if it is consonant, it will be consonant. If the character does not fall into the alphabet, the output will be nothing. That's we need to check this. The character the user is actually giving here, is it really alphabet or not? So you need to check that, and also check that the input the user given is a vowel or consonant. So we have two conditions. So first condition is we need to check first. We need to check first which one is it alphabet or not. Check alphabet. Okay, is it alphabet or not? Again, if it is alphabet, then we need to check here. If it is alphabet, then we need to check that it is a vowel or consonant. Okay, so this is obviously one nested if else. Okay, so let's see. So now you're going to first take one input from the user. So let's say alphabet. Okay, alphabet equal to input. We don't need to do it typecasting because the input function by default take one character, because this is taking one string also, because we are going to give here one just single character. So that's why we can do it. Now the next line, if the character is vowel, the output will be vowel. And also you can see here, if the character does not fall within the alphabet. So now we need to check this if the character is really vowel, if the real character is really alphabet or not. So how can I check this? So we have the alphabet A to Z and also capital A to Z. So how can I do that? So A is obviously less than Z. So how can we actually making this condition? So if the alphabet, this alphabet is greater than A, okay, if it's greater than A and less than Z, right? If alphabet is less equal Z, and also you need to check that, the alphabet is also the capital. If you give here the alphabet as a capital, so it should be also alphabet. So for that you need to just copy this line. So and we need to just replace it with A and replace it with Z. So we have two conditions, the capital one and the small one. So if the one condition is satisfied, we can check that it's a vowel or consonant. So we can use here OR. We don't need to use here AND, because AND checking the both conditions. So now our alphabet checking is done. So we can also test it out. So let's say yes, user input here, input is an alphabet. Okay, let's copy this one, alphabet. Also comment out this line. Else you can see here we need to print here nothing. So let's say print here nothing. Okay, this one. Okay, well, so now let's run the code here. So let's say I just press here Q. You can see user input an alphabet. So let's say I am going to put here 1. You can see here nothing. Well, so that's really fine working. So now we need to check that if this value is a vowel or consonant. So the vowel is A, E, I, O, U. And also for the capital one, A, E, I, O, U. So if the alphabet is present those, then we can say that this is vowel. Okay. Otherwise, it's called the consonant. So we can use here the operation that's called in, that we already discussed about that in our which class, maybe string class. We discussed about that string one, or the operator class, maybe in the operator class. Okay, you can see here in the operator class we actually discuss about the in operator. Yep, in operator, you can see here in. So you can actually use this one. So let's say if the alphabet in this condition, any of them inside this string, we're going to print it. It's called the vowel, right? So vowel. Otherwise, we're going to print it as a consonant. Okay, print it as a consonant. I know this is quite little bit tough for the beginner, but I just make it tutorial little bit simple so that you can also think that how can you solve some problem using Python programming language. So let's run the code here. Let's say a. So a is vowel. So let's say jet. So this is a consonant. And again, let's say 6. So this is nothing. Okay. So our code is working also fine. Okay, we solved the last problem also. Well, great. So this is for the conditional class, conditional logic statement. So now in the next topic, we are going to discuss about the for and while loops. So now we're going to discuss about the Python loops. So in Python, there is a two loops. First one is while and second one is for loop. So loops means doing the same tasks again and again. So let's see some example of loops and we're going to solve some different types of problems. Okay, so I already created the class here, loop class.py. So now what I'm going to do here, we are going to first discuss about the loop. But before discussing about the loops, let's say I'm trying to print 1 to 10, right? I'm just going to print here 1 to 10. So how can I do that? I just simply use here the print statement. Let's say print 1, then just copy this out and going to paste it here. Okay, and going to change it here. 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. Just going to copy this. Okay, that's 9 and 10. Okay, that's really fine. If I run the code here, and if I run the code here, and you can see the output 1 to 10. That's really fine. So let's say 1 to 100. Now let's print it out. How can you print it? That's one question. Yes, you can use this print statement for the 100 times, but if you need to print 1 to this number, how can you print it? Yes, that's why looping is coming. So first one, we are going to discuss about the while loops. So in while loops, there's the two part. Okay, so first part is called the logical expression part, and second part is called the action part. So while loop part is nothing but looks like that. First, you need to actually initialize here. That's called initialization. Then you need to use here one keyword that's called while. Then you have the logical expression part. That's your logical part. It's logical part. Then you have the statement. So this statement is called the actions. Okay. So this is the syntax of while loop. Okay. So now we're going to print 1 to 10, right? We are just going to print from 1 to 10 using one while loops. So how can you do that? First, you need to initialize the value. The value will start from 1. So let's say n equal to 1. Then we need to use here the keyword called while. So the loop will be executed after the 1 to 10. So if the value is less than equal to 10, when is less than equal to 10, I am just going to print it. I am just going to print this. Okay. So let's say I'm just going to print it here. And you can say 1. Okay. I'm just going to print it. It's just 1. But the problem is it is right now infinite. Why? Because it's just printing this number 1. So after 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, and we have 5, right? So for that, what I can do here, we need to add one number after the n. So n equal to n plus 1. So now if I am trying to print it, just going to print it here, cut and going to print it here. So this is less than 10. So when a number is less than 10, it will actually add it one number and print the n. So run the code here and you can see here 1 to 10. That's really awesome. So if you make it 1000, it will print the 1000 number. See, in a seconds. So that's why loop is coming. Okay. So this is the task for while loop. So you can see here, this is the initialization part, this is the logical part, and this is the statement part. Also, you can say the logical expression part and the action part. So if the condition is true, that's mean the logical expression part is true, then the statement, that's mean action will happen. Otherwise, it's not happen. Okay, well, so you understand the while loop in Python. So now we're going to solve another problem. So you're going to add one sequence that you already do in mathematics. Let's say 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 dot 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 dot. Okay, so you already know this sequence. Okay, so there is also one rule to do that. So how can you add the sequence? So the formula is n into n plus 1, n into n plus 1 divided by 2. So this is the formula. Using this formula, we can actually join them. That's mean add them. So 1 to 5, how many? It is 15. So using this formula, we can actually get the answer from that. So let's try to do that. So let's say n equal to 1, n equal to 5. Okay. Now we're going to use this formula, right? So let's say result equal to this one, and I'm going to print it here. So let's say print the n. Okay. So let's run the code here. You can see here 5. Okay, why 5? Because we print the n, so you need to print here the res, that's the result. So 15, that's really fine. So now the question is, how can I do that using a loop, right? How can I do that using the loop? So you can see here, we already print the statement from 1 to 10 using this while loop. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to just change this to the 5, and also we need to take one temporary variable that's called sum, because we're going to sum that. So we're going to sum from the 1 to 5. So that's why what I need to do, sum value is initially 0. So that's why sum plus n, that's 1, then 2, then 3, and 4, then 5. It will join them. So it should be n. Now what I can do, we can print the sum. Simple, really very simple. Just run the code. You can see here 15 is the answer because it's printing the n. Just run the code here right now. You can see 50. That's really fine. Well, so we solved two problems. So first problem is printing from 1 to n. Okay. Another one is sum from 1 to n. That's in 5. Well, so now we will also see that how can we use the else, if and else condition in the while loop. How can I do that? So let's say I am going to uncomment this line. And now I'm going to use here and one condition that's called else. I'm just going to print here one thing, that is your loop is over. Let's say loop over. That's when after the 5, our loop is over, and it will also show this message, right? If I run the code here, you can see loop is over. And if I'm trying to also uncomment these lines, you can see here our loop is over right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the else condition block is actually executed. So that you can use here if and else condition also in your while loop. So there is another technique. How can you use that? Now we already discussed about the list, right? So if I go the list class, so this is the class of list. But there is one thing, that is we just print here the list. Okay, we just print here list. But how can we actually take the each element from the value? You can see I just use here index, the index value, right? Index value in order to print the value of that. But now the question is, how can I print the each element in a just single line, right? So we can do it using iterator, or you can say loop. So for that, now we are going to discuss about the another loop that's called for loop. So this is most similar to while loop. So for loop, just we're going to actually discuss about that. So for loop. So our question is, how can we print the value that is already available inside our list? So I'm going to just copy this out. I'm just going to copy this out. So this is called iterator. So how can we iterate that? So for that, you need to use here the keyword called loop. Sorry, for. Then you need to give here one variable name. So let's say call item in a. Just you need to use this in operations, and it will actually iterate the value from a to item. So now if I'm trying to print the item, see one thing happening. It will printing all the value here. Okay, you don't need to use here a0 or a1 or a2 like that. You can use your loop to iterate all the value that is available inside your list. Same thing, if you're trying to print the letter one by another, one by after, you can also do it. So let's see how can I do it. So let's say a equal to, let's say Python. I'm just going to print the a. I'm just going to print the p, then y, then t, then h, then o, then n. So how can I do that? We can use the loop. So for, let's say letter in a, okay, then I'm going to print the letter. Okay, print the letter. Run the code. You can see here p, y, t, h, o, n. Really fine. So you can also see here in Python, there is a function that's called append. So we can also just grab the value from the string, and we are going to store it inside one list. So how can I do that? Let's initialize here one list. Let's say lst. Now we can use here this function that's called the append. So let's say lst.append, and you're going to append here the letter, right? So now if I'm trying to print it, so let's say print the lst, then you can see here all the value is inside this string. It will convert it into one list. Boom, that's really awesome, right? So we also discuss about the how can we actually iterate the value from the list, and also how can you iterate the value from the string and also store it inside one list. Now, so when you are trying to print from 1 to 10 using the while loop, it's really simple. You can see we have one statement, initialization, then the logical expression and the statement. But when you're trying to use the for loops, you need to also understand one functions or one method is called range. So let's say range 5. So if I am trying to print it, let's say print the range 5. Okay, so if I run the code here, and you can say range is 0 to 5. That's when our range is start from 0 to 5. So let's say I'm going to start it from 0 to let's say 55. So if I run the code, the range will start from 0 to 55. So this range function is actually working like that. You don't need to use here any conditions, this kind of conditions. So this is the range function is actually using adding one by one. After adding one by one, it will actually made one range. So if I actually use here 2, so it will actually print here 10 to 12, then 14, then 16, like that. That means gap that 2. You can see here same functions. Now, if I am trying to see it in a list, so how can I do that? I need to convert this into one list. So let's say if I'm trying to convert it into list, this range function, and I'm just going to remove it, just going to give here 5. Just run it right now. You can say 0 to 4. Again, 5 is not here, right? 5 is not here. Just means 0 to 4, 5 value it will try to actually initialize here. Okay, if I actually start from 1, then you can see here it will start from 1 to 4, not into 5, not 5, 1 to 4. That's means it actually and minus 1. It actually the raise function is following here and minus 1. So now if I'm trying to make it as 10, and if we have the gap of 1, so 1 to 3, then 5, like that. So 1, 3, 5, 7. So you can actually print it the odd number, okay, using this list one. Okay, in the range function you can actually print it. It's really simple. Well, so we actually discuss about the range function right now. Well, so we see that how the range function actually work. So now let's use it inside our for loop. So let's say for I in range. Let's say we are going to print from 1 to 10. So 10, we are going to just print it, right? From 1 to 10. Let's try to print here I. So now you can see here it will print from 1 to 9. Right? You can see 1 to 9. So you need to make it 11. Okay, 11. 1 to 10. So if I'm going to give here 2 gap, that's when if you're trying to print the even number. So you can see your odd number 1, 3, 5, and 9. If you start from 0 and gap should be 2, then it will be odd number. Well, that's really fine. Okay, you can also start it from 2. Let's just start from 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Cool. So this is the use of the range functions in for loops. So we can also use here another statement that is actually used here, that's called break and the continue. So let's say if the value of I is equal to 5, I'm just going to break the loop. Just mean I'm going to just break the loop and I'm going to print here the statement that is executed. So print I. So let's say I'm just going to print it from 1 to, let's say, 10. So when the value is 5, it will break the loop. That's mean it will print the 1 to 5. See, 1 to 4, sorry, 1 to not 5, because if the value of I is break, that's why it's 1 to 5. So if I actually use here to continue, so it will skip the value. So 1, 2, 3, not 5 is skipped, and 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is the basic difference between the break and the continue. So continue actually skip the value, and break will actually break the loop, right? If you're trying to break the loops in a certain positions, you can use this break statement. Okay. So now we're going to solve some problems. We're going to solve 3 problems, real world problem, so that your looping capability will be built up. So let's see the questions. So let's see the question number 1. So a list of number of 1 to 100 that are divisible by 3 but not by 5 should be output. That's mean we need to print here one list. So let's solve it out. So let's say my list equal to, let's say I'm just going to add here one empty list. So now we need to create one loop from which will start from 1 to 100. So for that we can use here for loops. So let's say for I in range start from 1 to 100. So that should be 101. And now we need to check that if the number is divisible by 3. That means this number is divisible by 3 but not by 5. Just we need to append it inside our list. So we need to use here one condition that's called if. So that's why we need to check this out. LST divided by modulus 3 equal to 0 and also but not by 5. So that's mean LST modulo division 5 equal to 0 is not equal to, right? It's not equal to. So that's why it's not equal to. Not equal to 5. We are going to append the value of I inside our list. So let's say LST dot append by the value. Okay, there's some problem. It is not be LST, this should be I. So if the value is divisible by 3 and not divisible by 5, I'm just going to add the value inside of a list. So now if I'm trying to print here, so let's say print here the LST, and now if I'm trying to run the code here, and you can see the value is appeared on here, which one divisible by 3 but not divisible by 5. See, so maybe you can see here 6, 9, 12, and also the 18, 21, okay, 27, 33, 36, okay, which is not divisible by 5. Okay, so okay, so our first question is done. It's really simple. So let's move on to the second questions. So second question is, let's say there is a list of different number. The list is following as follow. So this is our list. So from the list, a list of number less than 50 should be created and displayed in the output. So if the values are less than 15, just you need to print those values. Okay, in output display as the output. Okay, we can print it. Simple. Just copy this list from here. So let's copy this out, and we're going to do it here. So let's say my list, okay, equal to this list. So let's assign into the bracket and also remove this one. So this is our list. Well, so now we need to, what do we need to do? A list of number less than 50. So now we need to iterate to all the value from here. So let's say item in my list. Okay, so we need to check that if the number is less than 50, so we need to print the item, right? So let's say print the item. So this should be the item. Simple. So this should be the items. Okay, this should be the items, right? Simple. Just going to print it here. Let's run the code. So there's the value. It's actually less than 50, and you can say 94 is not printed yet, and 67 is not printed yet. So this is the answer for that. It's really simple. So now the final one. Let's look the following list. So this is our following list. So all the duplicate value should be removed from the list. So there is some duplicate value that we need to remove from the list. So that's why I'm just going to copy it and create here, let's say my list equal to, just going to pass it here, and also delete this hashtag, okay, because this is giving me the comment. So this is our list. So now inside this list we need to actually remove the duplicate. So duplicate means inside our list there is a double value or duplicate value. So how can I do that? So I can actually take one empty list, and inside this list we are going to just pass here the unique value. So for that we need to iterate to all the value from here. So let's say items in my list. Then we need to check that if this value is already available inside of a list. So if the items is not, okay, that's is not or not in, okay, not in, that's available inside our list. Let's say right now you can see empty list. So we just put here 40, again 45, 33, 34, 38, 28, and you can see here some duplicate value. So let's see, just find the duplicate value of 40. So 40 is available here. I think not. 45. 45 is not also available here. Let's say 33. So maybe 33 is available here as a duplicate. Okay, let's make it 40. Let's say 40 is duplicate value here right now. So you can see 40 and 40 is actually duplicate value. Just we need to find the unique one and remove the duplicate value from here. So I just going to iterate to all the value from my list. And after that, we need to check this. We need to check that this value is already available inside my list. If it is not available inside my list, just I am going to print it. Okay, or I am going to append it inside my list. Simple. So I'm going to append here my items. So now if I'm trying to print it, and let's say print the A, and now if you run the code here, then I can say 40, 45. You can see here 40 is not printed. 40 is not printed. Why? Because we could check that if the item is not in A, just you're going to append them. So you can say 40, 40, just going to make it item is not present in the 40. So first value come from 40. Then second values come from 50, 45. Then how it comes from 40, it will check them is the item is already available inside my list. This list. So you can say 40 is already available. So we are going to cut them. Okay, we are going to just discard them, and we're going to move on the next one like that. Okay, so we solve the third problem also using the for loops. So that's the basic of while loop and the for loop in Python. So now we're going to discuss about the Python functions. So what is the functions? A function is a block of code which can only run when you call it. So when you pass the data in the function, that's called the parameter, or you can say argument. So based on the function parameter or argument, you can divide them into 4 types. First one is the record argument. Second one is called the keyword argument. And third one is called default argument. And final one, that's called variable length argument. So we are going to discussing the 4 types of function parameter and argument in the next one. So all right, so now let's create here one Python file. So let's say function class.py. So now what I can do here, I am going to paste here the 4 types of function parameter or argument. So we are going to discussing about one by one. So first, let's see how can you define a function in Python. So in order to define the functions, you need to just use here one keyword that's called def, then your function name, then one parameter, then you need to return here one value that your function are going to return. So this is the building block of a defining function in Python. You can also say this as a method, right? Because Python, you know, Python is the object-oriented programming language, so that's why you can call this method. But right now, I'm just going to say it functions. Okay, so first one is called the record argument. So let's define here a function. So let's say add. We're going to add 3 numbers. So let's say A, B, and C. And it will return here A plus B plus C. So a function is executed when it is called. If I run the code here, you can see here nothing because this function is not called here. So let's say I'm going to call here. So let's say add. Okay. Now let's run the code. Okay. You can see here add missing 3 required positional argument called A, B, and C. So that's why it's called the required argument. That's mean you need to just put here the value of A, B, and C. It's required. You need to give here as it because this is compulsory. You need to just give it here. So that's what's called the required arguments. Okay. We call the function, but we don't give here the value of A, B, and C. So that's why it return me this kind of error. So if I am actually use here 1, 2, 3, right? And just run it. And you can see nothing here because we don't print it on our console. So let's say I'm trying to print it, and I'm going to actually run the code right now. Then you can see here 6. 1 plus 2 plus 3 equal to 6. So this is called the required argument. Okay, functions. Now next topic is called the keyword argument, right? So you're going to use this same example. Okay, so this is called the keyword argument. You can actually give here the value of A, B, C in these functions. So you can actually specify here a equal to 1 or b equal to 2 or c equal to 3. How? You can see here, let's say I want to give here a value should be 20, b value should be 12. So let's say borrow 12 and 20, let's say 30. So I'm just going to assign here a value to 20, b value to 12, and c value to 34. So how it is possible? It's not possible in this record argument. So for that, you need to use the keyword argument. You can specify here the value of this argument of the functions. Let's say a equal to 20, b equal to 12, and c equal to 34. So you can actually specify the keyword as argument. Then you can give here any kind of value. So if I run the code here, and you can see here 66 is the output, right? So that's called the record argument. So how you actually give here the a specific value of the argument, you can actually use this one called record argument. So now let's discuss about the next one called the default argument. Let's say I'm just going to, let's say c equal to 3. Okay, so I'm going to just give here the value of a and b. So let's say 1 comma 5. I don't give here the value of 3. So it will automatically, by default, it take the c value as a 3. Run the code, you can see 9. So now if I'm going to give here, it will taking the input as a 10. Right? So that's called the default argument. Well, so now the last one that's called variable length argument. So let's discuss about that. So in the variable level argument or a parameter, you don't need to give here the value here. Okay, you don't need to give here the value. You can see you give the value as a parameter as a argument. You don't need to give here. You can use here the star sign. So let's say args, args. Then you can actually let's say try to print it. So let's say try to print it. Print the type of our args. And when I call the functions, let's give here some values. So let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5 comma 6 comma 7 or 8. So if I'm trying to print it, and you can see a none, and class is nothing but a tuple. If I'm trying to give here one list, so you can see here class is nothing but tuple. It will actually, the args keyword actually nothing but taking the input as a tuple, right? Because this is a function and this is sign of tuple. So that's why it's taking the input as a tuple. So when you use here the variable and argument, all the value you can give here, it should be one tuple. So you can also convert it into the list. Okay. So if I'm trying to do that, we can convert it into the list. So you can see here, we just convert it into the list. Then your type should be the one list. Okay. Object is not iterable. Okay. I think I need to store it inside one variable. So let's say temp. And now if I'm trying to print the type of temp, let's say temp. Okay, and if I run the code, you can see a non-type. Class is non-type because it's right now non-type because it's the functions, and you can see a tuple, right? So we can change this value inside our this args keyword, right? So for that, if I am trying to make it list, and if I run the code here, and you can see here this is one list. Okay, so it is converted into one list. So now we are going to taking the input from the users, and we are going to check that we are going to just add those numbers. So how can I do that? So when you're trying to add them, we need one default temporary variable. So let's say sum. Then we are going to iterate to all the value from here, from the args. So let's say I in args. Then what I can do, we are going to sum it. So sum equal to sum plus I, that you already do in our for loop class. Then finally, we are going to return here the sum. Okay. So if I'm trying to print it like that, temp, and now if I run the code here, you can see here 36. So you can see here you don't need to give here any parameter argument. You can see here by default you have the 3 values, just you are going to add it. But right now you don't need to give here any kind of length of variables. You can give here, it's up to you. Okay, you can also convert it into one list. Okay, so let's say 9 comma 10 comma 11 like that, and you can also add it. Simple, really very simple. So when you need to give here some value, you don't know how the length should be, you can actually use this one called the variable length argument. Okay, So now we are going to be discussing two another important function that's called, first one is called map and second one called filter. So both the functions are mostly similar, but just filter have some difference. It will take just only for true values and map will take all the values as argument, right? So now what I can do, first we're going to discuss about the map. So inside the map, this map is taking one function, then it will take one iterator, or you can, or the iterator you can actually use here the list. So now I'm going to define here one list. So let's say my list equal to, I'm just going to group here some value. So let's say 2 comma 4 comma 6 comma 7 comma 8 comma 9 comma 10. Okay, just I'm going to put it here. So I am going to just make it a square of them. Just a square them. 2 is going to convert into 4 and 4 is going to convert into 16. So how can I do that? So first you need to call here the map functions. So this map is taking one functions and one iterator. So now you're going to do the square of that. So for that, what you need to do, you need to define here one function that's called a square. And now you're going to pass the value here, let's say x, and you're going to say that x into x. Okay, we are going to return it. Now we are going to actually call this function inside our map, then also our list that you are going to pass here iterator. That's mean it will take one value from here and it will pass these functions and it will give here one value. So now if I'm trying to, let's say this is our new list. Okay, so now if I'm trying to print it, so let's say print the new list, and if I run the code here, and I can see map objects, right? Right now it's map object. So if you're trying to see it in list, so you need to convert it into the list. Really very simple. Okay, just run the code here. And I can see 4, 16, 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100. And it will convert them into the square. So when you're actually using this kind of scenario, when you have a list, you need to use here one functions as your iterator. You can actually use these map functions. So now we're going to discuss about the filter functions in Python. So let's take one example. So you're going to check that if the number is even or not in a list, and we're going to also print the list. So let's say we have one list. So let's say my list. So which one I start from? Let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5 comma 6 comma 7 8 comma 9. Let's say 10. Oh. So now what I can do, you are going to check that every value inside our list, and also you're going to print those value which number is actually even. So what I can do, we can use here filter, because this filter is checking the value is true or not. If the value is true, it will take them, otherwise it will cut them. So for that, we need to define our functions. So let's say def is even. Okay, so we take one value x. So if this x is divisible by 2, so that's written here true. And also we know that filter is actually return here the value, actually taking the value if this is true, otherwise it will discard them. But for the map it's not. So else what are you going to do, else we are going to return here the false. So you need to write here the false else block here, return false. Now if I'm trying to put it here is even, and also my list, simple. I'm just going to eat very fast because I think right now you are more familiar with the functions, so that's why. So let's say temp, and now if I'm trying to print it, temp, and the code, I get the filter objects, right? So if I'm trying to convert it into the list, so see, this is one list, simple, boom, 2 4 6 8 10. So using this one, you can also check that is it a prime number or not. So it's your homework. You need to check that if it is a prime number or not a prime number. So it's your homework. So I just go it for even. So if you're trying to check this for odd, is odd. So how can I do that? Is odd. Just make this one not. Okay, so run the code. You can see here, this is the odd number. So this is all about the functions in Python. So the next tutorial, we are going to be discussing about the file. So now we're going to be discussing about the files in Python. So let's go on the VS Code. So let's create here one empty Python file here. So let's say file class.py.
So in order to handle the file, we need to create one empty file here. So just we're going to create here one empty text file. So let's here test.txt. So you're going to write something here. So let's say I am Mishudhar Chandu. Okay. So I'm going to just save it. I'm going to close it. So I'm going to actually read this file using Python. So there is some rules that you need to follow. So first you need to open the file, then you need to read the file, and you need to also close the file. So let's open it. Let's open the file. So our file name is called test.txt. So now you need to give here one mode. So which mode you are trying to do. So we are going to first read it. So what is available inside our file. So that's why we are going to use here one keyword, or you can say alphabet called R. So when you're trying to read them, you need to use here the mode as a R. Now let's assign into one variable that's called the, let's say, my file. Okay. So now if I am trying to print it, that's mean if I'm trying to print it, it's not printed yet. When you actually open the file, you need to also read it, right? So let's say my file dot read. Now assign into one variable that's called, let's say, content. Okay. So you read the file. Now you need to also close the file. So let's say my file dot close. So you need to follow this strategy, then you can actually handle the file. So if I am trying to print it, the content that is available inside my file, I can. So if I run the code here, you can see here I am Mishudhar Chandu. That is already available inside my text.txt. So let's say see you at Knowledge Doctor YouTube channel. Okay. So if I am save it and close it and run the file here again, and you can see I am Mishudhar Chandu. See you at Knowledge Doctor YouTube channel. If I comment out these lines and run the code, you can see here we can also read it. Okay. So it's up to you. It's better you can close the file. It's better. So otherwise it should be in the right mode. So let's run the code here again, and you can see here I am Mishudhar Chandu. See you at Knowledge Doctor YouTube channel. Right. So if I'm trying to add here some text, okay, just I am going to make it empty right now. Okay, just empty file. Now inside this empty file I am trying to write something. So for that you need to actually use here one property that's called the W. Then you can use, instead of using read, you can actually use here the write. Okay, now inside this write method, let's say I'm just going to copy this one. I am Mishudhar Chandu. Okay, then you can see our text file is right now empty. So now if I'm trying to run the code, you can see a 21. So 21 is nothing but the content size. So if I go on this text.txt, you can see I am Mishudhar Chand. Okay, DU is missing, or O is missing. So 22 right now, and you can see here I am Mishudhar Chandu. That is converted here. Okay, so this is the writing mode of the file. So when you're trying to add here something inside your file, you can use here alter. So let's say I'm going to add here alter. So let's say CU of Knowledge Doctor YouTube channel. Just I'm going to write it. So change it, and I'm going to run the code. 39. So if I go on here, you can see Mishudhar Chandu and see you at Knowledge Doctor YouTube channel. You can see it already automatically added here. You can also alter. Just you're trying to update it, right? So if I give here on a space, okay, and run the code here again, you can see here 40. That's mean it will also read the space, right? So you can see here, see you at Knowledge Doctor YouTube channel. It's added here, right? Because this is already added. Well, so this is the alter method, or you can alter it. So you can see there are so many lines. You can also do one shortcut. So using the with keyword. So let's say with open, and we're going to use here text.txt. So now you can use here your mode. So let's say I'm trying to read it as let's say my file. Okay, then I'm going to print it. So I'm going to just print it, my file dot read. Just I'm going to use this my file. So let's say print my file dot read. Okay, and now if I run the code here, and you can say I'm Mishudhar Chandu and see you at another YouTube channels. So this is another way
to actually write in the file. So let's say if I am trying to give here one, that file is not available inside my directory. So you can see here no source file or directory text 1.txt. So this is called the error handling. So how can you actually handle them? So in Python, there is a 3 block called try, then it have the accept, and another block is called finally. So we can, using this, we can actually handle the exception. So the exception is coming here. This is not called the no source file in the directory. There's been file not found error. So what I can do, we are going to just put it inside this try block. So let's say try. Then what I can do, we can use here one except block. So okay, accept, okay, accept, and our error is nothing but the file not found exception. So if this error is happening, we are going to just print here one message, file not found. Okay, file not found. Well, so this is well. So if I run the code here, you can see here file not found. So if I actually uncomment it and run the code here, you can see I am Mr. Chandu, see you at another YouTube channel. So this is called the error handling. How can you handle the error? So now let's see the final one. Finally, so let's say finally, if I'm trying to print it, so this is called the default block. Code runs well. Okay, so if I run the code here, and you can see here I am Mr. Chandu and code runs well. So if I run the code, change something here, let's say text1 to txt, you can see a file not found and code runs well. Our code is working fine, but file is not found. The finally block is nothing but default block for which it executed. So if you don't see actually right here anything here as the exception, so you can actually use here the exception. Okay, E exception, you can actually give here exceptions, just this one, and run the code here. You can say file not found, the exception is working, and text.txt. You don't need to actually give here which kind of exception actually happening here. So you can see I am Mr. Chandu and code runs well. The exception is not actually present on here. So if I am trying to change, trying to print the exception, and it also runs. So let's see 12, and you can see here class exception. This is exception class. Okay, exception. Let's say SE. So if I'm trying to change, actually try to print it E, and you can see here no source file in directory. So these are our exceptions. So you can also take the exception using this formula. Okay, so this is called the error handling in file. So our Python course is going to be end. Just we're going to discuss about the two topics. So operating system, that's the OS module, and also the data module. And then we are going to jump on the 5 projects that we actually promises to do that. So let's move on that. So now let's discuss about the OS module in Python. So OS mean operating system. So there are 3 types of operating system like Windows, Linux, or Mac. So currently I'm using here Windows. So I'm going to do the coding for Windows. So let's go to the VS Code. So now let's create here one Python file. So let's say os class.py. So because OS is one kind of module, so for that you need to import it. So when you're trying to import the module, something from your library, you need to use here import. Okay, let's say import OS. Okay, OS mean operating system. So if you are trying to check this, the current directory that you are working here, that's working directory, you can use here os.get cwd. So it will actually give you the path of your current directory. So if I'm trying to print it, so let's say print os.getcwd. So it will give you the current working directory. So you can see here my current working directory is this one, e colon and Python crash course. So this is my working directory. So if you are trying to change the directory, let's say I'm going to change the directory. Okay, I'm going to change the directory. So let's comment out this line. Let's say os dot change dir. That's been change directory. If you're trying to change the directory, so you can use here. Let's say I'm going to change the directory from Python crash course. This one. Okay. So let's say Python. Okay, Python project. So my directory is right now changes. Okay. So if I run the code, nothing is happened. But here I am trying to print the os dot, let's say get cwh, and if I run the code, okay, cwh and cwd, sorry, why I'm talking about h, you can see here right now the current directory is converted into Python crash course and Python projects. So right now my current directory is inside these Python projects. So now I am trying to actually create one folder. So for that I can use here another command that's called mkdir, that's the make directory. So inside this I am going to create another directory that's called project. Okay, let's run the code. It executed. So if I go on here, you can see a project one folder is created. Okay, one file folder is created, that's called project. Cool. So now let's see another one. So let's say os dot make dirs. If you're trying to create many dirs or many directory, you can use this one. So let's say inside that I'm going to create here 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. So let's run the code, and if I go on here, you can see here 1, and beside that you can see a 2, 3, 4 and 5. So this is our working directory. So you can see a Python project, and inside this you can see here folder 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, because we use here the make dirs, so inside that it will create 5 folder, right? So now you can see here we have one file that's called text.txt. So let's say I am trying to actually remove this. So let's say we can use here os.remove. We can use here os.remove, and we need to give here the file name. So let's say text.txt. Okay, I am just going to remove it, right? So I need to also change the directory path. So for that, I'm just going to comment out this line and I'm going to call it. And you can see here the file is removed, right? So now let's create it again. So let's say test. Okay, this is inside the folder, right? So I think I need to delete it. Okay, I need to create outside the folder. So let's say test.txt. Well, so we see how to remove the file from your directory. So now let's see how can you rename that. Let's say my file name is text.txt. We are going to rename it. So let's say you can use here rename. So for that you need to give here your file name. So let's say text.txt. We are going to change it to the, let's say, test12.txt file. Okay, or let's say test12.py file, like that. So if I'm trying to run the code here, and you can see test.txt file is converted into one Python file. That's really awesome. Okay, cool. So let's make it test.py to txt, right? Run the code, and you can see converted, right? So let's say I'm going to convert this set class to the text file. So let's say set class.py to set.txt. So I'm just going to rename it. Okay, it's now converted into the text file. See, all the Python code is converted into txt file, right? So you can see our cross sign issue. And now I am going to actually again make this txt file to the set class to Python file. Okay, let's say py, and let's run the code here. Okay, the system cannot find a specific class that's called set text.txt because this is set. Okay, cool. Run the file. Yep, set class again comes. It's really good. Okay, we also discuss about that. So now let's see base path. So os dot path dot, let's say, base name. Okay, so let's say I am trying to use this one Python crash course as the base name. And also if I run the code here, and you can see my Python crash course. So if I'm trying to add here the, let's say, text.txt, I can also do that. Okay, crash course, but it's not actually changes the directory, it just changes this directory one. So if I'm trying to print it, and you can see here this is not changes. Okay, you can see a Python crash course and test.yes, you need to use here this one, and one also slash. I think it will work now. and you can see here text.txt. That's mean it will taking the base name that your file is located. It's just actually changing your files. It will actually searching for your file name. So you can see here inside this folder, I have one file that's called text.txt. So it will return the just your file names. Well, so now the next one is called os.path dot let's say exist. os.path dot exist. That is this path is really exist or not. So let's say I am trying to use this one. So this is already exist. Okay, I think I need to delete it. And let's say try to print it out. So it will actually give here one boolean value. So if the path is actually available, so you can check this using this os.path.exist. So you can say true. So if I'm trying to change this something here and run the code, you can see false because this path is not exist. Well, then we can also check that is file or is directory. You can also check this out. Okay, then you can also join them. So let's say os.path.join. Okay, path.join. So let's say we are going to join our current directory to the file name. So how can I do that? So we can actually define here, let's say dir equal to our current directory. Let's say this one directory, and we're going to add here the file name that's called text.txt. Okay, we are going to just join them. So if I run the code, you can see here this is added, and this is the current directory. It's not changes yet. So if I am trying to print it, and you can see here just one thing, your directory is added to here. Okay, text.txt, right? So this is done. So let's say if I'm trying to make it text12, and you can say text12. Okay, it will change them. Well, so we also discuss about the joins. So now discuss about the split one. So let's say split os.path.split. So if I'm trying to give here any path, so let's say give here this path and just run it. Just try to print it out and also just run this. And you can see here it will actually split the path. You can see this one, this path is splitted, and this path also. You see? Okay, it will actually split them. So let's make it this one and try to check this out. You can see split it, this one the directory, and this our file names. Okay, so using this split method, you can actually split your directory and your file name also. So this is all about the OS module in Python. I just make it so speed. If you have any queries, you can also change your speed level from the YouTube. Okay, so next one we're going to discuss about the date time module. Then you're going to close our Python crash course. Then you're going to jump on the 5 different projects using Python for beginners. So now let's discuss about the date time module in Python. So this is the last topic of the Python crash course. Then you're going to jump on the 5 beginner level project using Python. So let's go on the VS Code. So let's create here one Python file here. So let's say date time class.py. So because date time is a one kind of module, so for that you need to also import it from date time. So from date time, we are going to import here the date. So first let's see the operation of date. So if I am using date dot, okay, you can see here today. Then you can see a strip time. Then you can see so many function or so many functions actually available here. So let's use here the today one. So let's say today. And if I'm trying to assign into one variable, let's call temp. Let's say temporary variable. And if I'm trying to print it, it will show me the date of today. Okay, so today is 1st December. Okay, 1st December. So that's why it's showing up. You can see first is 22 year and 12 in month, and the one is the day. Okay, so if I am trying to see the year, month, and the day separately, so I can use here temp dot, you can see here, let's say month. I can also print it. So what did you do? You need to use here this inside this one print functions. Okay, then if I run the code, you can see here the month, and if I'm trying to say the day, so I can also see it 1, and if I'm trying to see the year, so I can also see it. Okay, so this is the year, right? So now if I'm trying to see the date and time in a same module, so I can also import here the date time. So date time, so for that I need to use here the date time dot now. Okay, and now I can see the month, year, and also the minute and the seconds also. So month, let's say right now the minute, and let's say the second. Okay, and you can also see the hour. So you can see a minute is right now 52. Okay, I think, sorry, the minute is this one, and right now it's actually 12:12. So that's why it show that 000. Right now I'm just recording the videos, that's why. And the seconds, okay, and you can see here this is the minutes, right? So if I'm trying to change this to the hour, okay, and the seconds, and hour is right now 23, okay, and it is 60 second, right? And if I'm trying to print the temp dot, let's say minute, maybe minute, so if I run the code here, and you can see 27 23, that means right now 11 57 and 32 second at night. So if I run the code here again, so you can see it's converted into 43. So I don't know why it's actually coming up here. Okay, so just run the code here again, and you can see right now converted into 52. So I think right now 55, 57, 58, 59, and 0. Right now it converted into 23, 58. So 2 minutes left, then 2 December. Okay, so we can also see it one by one from here. So there's another module called time. We can also import it. So import time. So we can also format our time in a string format. So let's see something here. Let's call timer. Okay, so let's say time. So it will show up the CPU running time. So let's say if I'm trying to print it, and it will show the time it's taken to run this program in a microseconds. And you can see how the program is taking this kind of microsecond to run the code again. And you can see this one. So if I'm trying to copy this out, and let's check this out in the another class. So let's say this one. Okay, I'm just going to print it. Okay, I need to also import it here, right? So that's the import time. And if I'm trying to run the code here, this variable data type dot py, enter two numbers. So let's say 10 12, and you can see the time is taken to execute this program. Okay, so this is the uses of time. And we have another one called the time or gm time. Okay, so gm time is nothing but give us the value in abstract format. So you can see abstract time. So if you're trying to see it in a string format, your time and your date, your day, you can use here another functions that's called time.strf time. So this is called strf time in string format. It will take one string, then also your time. So if I'm trying to save it inside a variable called t, then if I'm trying to pass it here, and also I need to give here some format of string. So first format of string to for hour is I, then for minute we can use here m, capital M. For second we can use here capital S. Then we have the PM or AM, we can use here P, and percentage D, and percentage B is for nothing but it is a January or the February or the March, like that. Then we can use here the year. For year we can use here percentage Y in a small letter. So if I'm trying to print it, you can see here, if I run the code here, you can see here the time and the seconds. Okay, I think this is the seconds. Okay, seconds, and the day, this means this day, and the month, and the year, right? So you can see here, I think if I'm trying to use here age, so let's run the code. You can see the hour. Okay, so there is another interesting thing, that is if I am trying to import the strip time from the time module, we can also do it. Let's say from time we can input here the strip time. You can also do it in a short way. So let's say if I'm trying to use here from time, I am going to import here the strip time. We can also do that strf time. Okay, this one. And if I run the code here, it will also working fine. Okay, this time is not actually working here right now. So this is GM time, but right now GM time is not working. So when you actually trying to use here the strip time, you can also use here another format. This format you can also use that to show the time. So let's say if I'm trying to print it and also go on here and just run the code, and you can see the time is appeared here. This is my local time. So using the strip time, you can also do this thing in this way to in order to get the local time. But if you're trying to get the GM time, you can actually use this formula to get the GM time. Okay. So this is the whole tutorial. That's my whole course. So now we're going to jump on the latest 5 project for the beginner level. So this is the whole course. It takes so many times to making for these whole courses. So my request is to watch the tutorial full till the end. Otherwise, you can save the video on your YouTube bookmark. Okay, and don't download it, right? Because in YouTube, watch time is very important. So that's why my request is to just save the video and you can see it in day by day, because it's 5 hour long course maybe. I just not actually doing the editing part here. So maybe 5 hour it will take. So it's better you can practice more and practice more, even though I make these courses for just for beginners level. And also I'm trying to solve some problem after each exercise. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial. So now let's move on the 5 simple and basic project. And because of the time consumeness, I'm not making this out very cool. And if you have any problem or if you need more projects, you can also watch my full YouTube tutorial, because there are so many lots of projects based on deep learning, machine learning, and also the OpenCV. So I'm just going to make some beginner level project for the beginners who are actually watching this full tutorial. So thank you. So just go on that. So now we're going to build our first project that's called Python clock. So for that, we are going to actually discuss about one simple GUI framework that's called tkinter. So using the tkinter, we are going to making this clock, this digital clock. So for that, we are going to first import our tkinter, and from the tkinter, we are going to import all the module. Then what I can do, we are going to create one simple screen of the tkinter, and using this tkinter screen, we are going to set our clock inside this tkinter frame. So let's say root equal to tk, and also give here one title. So let's say root dot title. That's our GUI frame title. So let's say clock. Okay, we will as clock, and then we have to use here the main loop. Well, so now let's run the code here, and you can see one frame is appeared. That's called clock. You can see here inside the title, you can see a clock. So now inside this frame, we are going to set our time, and this time should be the continue. Okay, so for that, what I can do, we need to import here the time module here that we already discussed about that. So from the time, we are going to first import here the strip time, because we're going to make it hour, minute, second, and also PM or AM. So let's say strip time. Now what I can do, we are going to first create one label. Then after creating the label, then you're going to actually pack it, right? So let's say label dot pack. So beside first, if you're trying to pack the label, you need to also create the label, right? So let's say inside our label, so let's say label equal to, you can use here the label one, and inside that it will take some parameter as argument. So first parameter is nothing but our root. Then you need to give here one background. So let's say background, you can give here background color. So let's give here background color as, let's say, white. So now our text, so which kind of text that you're going to give here? So let's say foreground. So inside the foreground, you're going to use here the, let's say, white or black one. Okay, let's say black background. So now what I can do, we're going to pack this label in our anchor tag as a true. That's in the center. So our anchor should be the center. So now we're going to actually print here one text on the middle of our screen. So we are going to define one function that's called time functions. So what I can do, we are going to config this label. So let's say label.config, and this config taking one text. So let's say the text, we are going to see that that's called Python clock. So let's say Python clock, and we're going to call this function after this pack. So now let's run the code here. And you can see the Python clock. Well, that's really good. So Python clock at the center. So now using this formula, we are going to now set the time here, right? Just going to set the time. So for that, what I can do, we are going to actually calling this strip time. So let's say strip time. So this is strip time, and inside that, what are you going to do? We are going to use here this formula. That's called ampersand h, then percentage m. That's been hour and the minute. Then we have also our second, and then we have our am or pm. Okay, so let's assign into a variable that's called a string, and now we're going to copy this string and going to pass it here, and I'm going to run the code here. So you can see here the time is appear on here in international time. So right now this is the time, and this is the am or pm. But the problem is this time is not actually, what do you call, the time is not actually converted, or you can say updated. So after 1 second we are going to fast updating this GUI frame. So for that, what you can do, you can also update our level. So let's say level dot, we are going to actually update it. So for that, we can use here update, or you can use here the after. So after 100 millisecond, we are going to update our time, this time function. So it will actually update the time. You can see your time is right now updated after 1 second. So we can also make this clock bigger. So for that, we need to also change our level. So we can use here one font property that is available here. So let's use your one font. So we can use here the font. Let's say use here one simple font. That's called, you can use here Arial. I don't know Arial is supported here or not. And the font size and your font weight, let's say give here bold, and just run the code here. Okay, that's working. And you can see the time is appear on here. That's really cool. Okay, at the center. You can also give here another font. Let's say Calibri. You can also use this font. Okay, code is running. You can see the font is quite little bit okay. Okay, so this is the digital clock. That's really good. So that's our first project. So now we're going to make one simple program for countdown timer. So for that, we need one module that's called time. So we need to also import it. So the user actually give here one input in an integer format, and this is the second, at how many seconds that you're going to wait. So I am first going to taking the input from the users. So let's say taking the input from the users. So let's say enter your second. Okay, or enter second. Okay, so this enter second is actually now taking as a string format. You need to also convert it into the integer. Then what I can do, we are going to define here one function. So this function actually give here the countdown. Okay, so let's say def, let's say count time, and this count time taking the second that is given by the users. So let's say this is the users. So this is the user time. So let's say user time. So let's make it user time also. We're going to pass it inside our countdown. So let's say count time. Okay, and inside this I am going to just call this one user time. Okay, so let's try to print something here. Let's say print function calling, just for checking. So if I run the code here, you can see here, okay, enter second, let's say 12, function calling done. So if I am trying to print the second, so let's say int user time, let's say user time. And if I'm trying to run the code, and let's say enter seconds, let's say 12, and you can say 12 is also printing and function calling. Fine, so it's working. So now we need to first create one infinite loop. Okay, why? Because let's say I give here 12, so I need to just minus it from 1, just 1, then 10, then 9. Just we need to make it minus from the seconds. We need to just minus 1 seconds. So for that, what I can do, we can use here the loop. Just we are going to loop through that. After loop to index, we're going to calculate the time. We need to actually convert these seconds into the seconds, because maybe let's say I'm just going to give here as a 1000. Okay, so 1000 is just give here as the integer. We need to also convert it into the seconds, that how many seconds here. Okay, so for that we need to just convert it based on the hour. Okay, so that's why we need to use here one method that's called the deep mod. So let's say deep mod, and inside that I'm just going to pass my user time, and I'm going to change this to the 16, and this 16 is give me the answer as a minutes and also the seconds. Okay, so let's say minutes and the second. So if I am trying to print it, so let's say print it, let's say minutes and the seconds. So if I am run the code here, let's say 12 seconds, and you can see here 0 is nothing but our minute and 12 is nothing but a second. So if I run the code here, and let's say I give here, let's say 360. Okay, so it will give me the 6th hour. Okay, that is 6th hour and 0 seconds. That's really fine. So just we need to make it as a count timer, like that. So for that we need to use this deep mod. Okay, so now we are going to actually format our time. So let's say we are going to format the time in a one colon. Okay, and also you can format it. Okay, so for that what I can do, we are going to take the two space, that is 606 and the 00 to format. So how can I do that? We can use here the format specifier here. So let's say I'm going to use this format specifier, and I'm just going to pass it here. So let's say just cut this out, and I'm going to pass it here, and I'm going to use here the format specifier. That's a format, and I'm going to give here the minutes and the seconds. Now I'm going to convert this 6 to 06 and 0 to 00. So how can I do that? I can use this formula. Let's say 0 to D in the 2 point of decimals, and I'm going to add here one colon, then also 2 point of decimals below. And if I'm trying to print it, so let's say trying to print it here, print it, so it can be shown like that. Just write, just run the code. You can see here enter the seconds. So let's say 360. Again you can see here 06 and 00. Now it is a standard time. Now we are going to because this is a countdown timer, so that's why you need to minus from the user time. So let's say user time equal to user time minus 1. Okay, it will actually taking it actually higher, it will actually stop. So higher the user time is 0. So higher the user time is 0, then it will actually stop. So if I now run the code here, just run the code, and if I give here 12, and you can see here 0 and 12 is printed, and you can see user time. If I'm trying to print the user time, so let's say try to print the user time. Okay, user time, and now if I run the code here, you can see here, let's enter 12, and you can see 11. It's just minus for one times. So because this is the task is actually happening again and again, so that's why we need to use here looping. So for that, what you can do here, we can, let's say while, okay, while the user time, okay, user time. So while in the user time we can actually do this task. High and the user time is 0. Okay, by default high and it is 0, then we can make it we can just stop them. Okay, so we can also use here time dot sleep. We can use a time dot sleep. After 1 second to sleep the program, then it will restart the program again and again. Otherwise it will show the full time is actually in a manner way. If I run the code here, you can see just to white. So let's say 12, and you can see it will print the old time. Okay, so if I'm trying to sleep the program for 1 second, so what I need to do, you need to use here the time dot sleep. So let's say time dot sleep 1 second. So if I am now run the code here, you can see here, let's enter the seconds. Let's say 12, and you can see 0 12 0 11 then 09 08 07 06 05 and 03 02 and 01. Okay, so this is the countdown timer. So you can also show here one print statement, this countdown timer is done. So let's say time is finished. Okay, okay, so if I run the code here again, and let's say 10 seconds. So after 10 seconds, you get 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1, stop. Time is finished. Okay, so this is really cool. Okay, So this is one simple program to how can you make one countdown timer. So now in this one, you're going to see how can you generate one password. That's mean we're going to create one simple program for generate the password, a strong password, right? So let's make one file. Let's say password generator dot py. So because you're going to generate the password, and the password is consisting of letter, digit, and the special character. So for that we need the string. So we are going to import the string here. So let's import a string, and inside this string we can actually taking the letter and the digits and also the special character. So for that, let's say string dot, let's say ASCII letter, then we have our string dot our digit, so there should be the digits. Then we have also our strings dot special character, that's called the punctuation marks, so that's called punctuations. So let's assign into a variable, so that's called, this one is a special, this is the letter, so let's say L, and this is our digit, so let's make it inside the D, and this is our punctuation, that's my special character, so let's say special SC. Okay, so now what are you going to do, we're going to join those and create one password. So let's say alphabet. Okay, let's say our alphabet or password, let's say password. Okay, password equal to this L, then we have the D, and we have the SC. So you can also say that this is alphabet because this is consisting of the L, D, and SC. So let's say I'm going to make it, let's say ALPH. So if I am trying to print the alpha, print, let's say ALPHA, let's say bet. Okay, I'm just going to make it one. If I run the code here, you can see here all the letter. Okay, it's not printed, right? I don't know why. Just run the code here again, and you can see all the alphabet, that's the ASCII letter and the digits, and all the punctuation mark is printed. So now what I can do, we are going to first make one password, and the password is consisting of using the ASCII letter, digit, and the punctuations. So for that we need another module that's called the secrets. Okay, let's say secrets. So secrets is actually help us to choose the value, that's been that chose the value from the randomly inside our alphabet. Okay, so now what I can do, we need to initialize here one password length. So let's say password length, so let's say password length, so let's our password length should be the 16, let's say 16 our password length. So now what I can do, based on the length, we are going to now create one loop, because based on loop we are going to join all the letter. We are going to first choose the one letter from the our alphabet, then after that we're going to store it inside one variable. So let's say define here one temporary variable that's called temp, and this is one empty string. Now inside the empty string we're going to join them, that is using our secret module. We can actually select the value from our list. So for that we can use here the loop. So for I in range, so the range is actually coming from the password length, so there should be password length. Okay, now what I can do, we are going to first choose the value using the secrets. So let's say secrets dot choice, so you're going to take the choice from the alphabet, the one value alphabet. Then what I can do, we are going to join it in our password. So for that we can use here simple one, that's called temp equal to temp plus, okay, secret choice, this one. So if I am trying to print it, so let's say trying to print the temp. Okay, so just going to print it, and if I run the code here, you can see here the password is generated, right? You can see the password is generated. Okay, right, that's great. You can also use here one function that's called a join. Okay, you're just going to join it using this space. You can also use here this join one, so let's say join. So if you run this code again, so just join it and run the code again, and you can see here the value is coming up here. Okay, in a manner way. Okay, in a manner way. So you can see the password. This is a password, this is a password, this is a password, this is the password, this is the password. Okay, So you can see a strong password is actually generated. See, okay, how low it is. Okay, so this is a simple program for password generations. This is for complete beginner, so that's why I chose it. So the next one we are going to go to some medium level. So we are going to create on camera. It's really interesting. So let's create on camera. So now we're going to create on camera. So let's create here one Python file. Let's say camera.py. So in order to create the camera, you need to one module that's called the OpenCV, and also you need to install this module. So for that, if you are using pip, or if you install the Python correctly on your system, just open a command prompt, cmd, and your Python shell, your terminal should be open. If you check that your Python is installed or not, you can type here Python. So make sure that when you actually run this code, you need to also install the library. Okay, so the library name is called pip install opencv python. So make sure that when you actually install this library, you just need to do this command that's called pip install opencv python. I hope you are beginner. If you don't know what is pip, you can just go on Google and search for that. So if you're trying to use an external package in your Python program, you just need to use this formula: pip install and OpenCV Python. And OpenCV Python is nothing but the package if you are trying to use this. So using this package, now you're going to create one camera, right? So for that, you need to first import here the OpenCV. So in OpenCV, you cannot write here import OpenCV. You need to import it as a CB2. So how you actually import it? Now you're going to create on camera. So that's why you need to create one video capture objects. If you know the basic of ops concept in C or C++, so it also follow that. So you need to use here cb2 dot video capture. So I know it's basic, it totally some advanced levels, but I make it simple so that you can actually get very excitement to learn Pythons. So let's say inside this, I'm just going to put here 0. You can also put here 1 if you have any external webcam. So let's say video equal to cb2 dot video capture. So let's say we need to create here one infinite loop. So let's say while true. And now you're using this video, you're going to read the frame from our webcam. And this webcam, it actually give here the two values. One is nothing but a Boolean value, and another one is our frame. So now what I can do, we are going to show it. So for that, to show that, we can use here one method that's called cb2.imshow. And inside that, we can say that frame, and this is our frame name. Okay, and now we need to actually add here one word key, that your window or pop-up should be, when the camera is actually open, your pop-up should be white on. So for that, we can use here cb2 dot word key, and let's say we can give here, let's say 1. Okay, so let's assign into one variable that's called k. So k is nothing but, because of this is called keyboard binding function. So because this is the infinite loop, we need to also bracket, right? So for that, if you are trying to press something from the keyboard, because the infinite loop is actually infinite, okay, you need to also bracket this out. So if you're trying to stop the window, you need to use this one keyboard binding functions. Otherwise, you need to use here the taskbar, right? So that's why if k equal to ord, so ord is taking the input from the keyboard. Okay, I think it's quite tough for you if you're a beginner. So just bracket, and then you need to actually destroy all the windows, and also you need to release the video. Okay, so release the video, and also cb2.destroy all windows. Okay, so now let's run the code and see that our camera is opening or not. So just click on here, and I hope it will open the webcam. Okay, webcam allow access, done. Wow, cool. So you can see here our webcam is actually on right now, and it also show me up, right? So now our the fourth project is done. Now we're going to do the interesting one. We are going to take one countdown timer, and when the countdown timer is actually finished, we're going to take the picture of that. So that's very interesting. So that's why I do this one, like creating one camera. So now let's see how can we do that. So this is the final one, the final project. That's called countdown timer based one webcam. So now we're going to make one countdown timer based camera. So for that, we need our camera code that we do earlier. So just copy this and I'm going to paste it here. Okay. So this is the code for creating camera. So now what the logic that you're going to using here. So if anyone press T from the keyboard, we are going to take the pictures after few seconds. So let's say we have one variable called timer. So let's say timer equal to, let's say, 10 seconds. So let's actually convert it into the integer. So let's integer and 10. So right now it is integer. Okay. So now what I can do, if anyone press T from the keyboard, if k equal to ord T, so what I can do, we are going to create one loop, and after that second, we are going to take the pictures of the person or of the scenario, right? So now what I can do, let's say, uh, what I can do, we are going to create one loop. So let's say while, so timer is actually less equal 0. That's in when it is greater than 0, then we are going to uh, make our timer should be timer minus 1. Okay. Okay. After if loop, we are going to make this timer equal to timer minus 1. But when we do that after 1 seconds, so we can use here time dot sleep, right? But the problem is when we actually using here time dot sleep, our frame, that's our video frame, is also stopped. Okay. And now when you actually use here this formula, this one, conditions timer is greater than equal to 10, you also need to create our camera. So for that, I'm just going to copy this code, because this is another part. So that's why I need to call it. So now you can see here our camera is right now on in this one. So when we actually use here time dot sleep, okay, just time dot sleep, it will actually stop this whole frame for 1 second. Then what will be happen, after 1 second it will stop, after 1 second it will stop, after 1 second it will stop, after 10 second, after 10 time it will blink, the frame, right? So if I am trying to show it, it will be better. Okay, so time dot sleep, so let's run the code, time dot sleep for 1 second. So now if I run the code here, just move the webcam and just run the code here, and you can see one thing, that is when I press T from the keyboard, and you can see it will actually stop the frame, right? So that's the problem. So we need to also fix this out. So for that, we can actually take in the previous value of the time. Then based on the previous value, we are going to show the frame. So for that, what you can do, we need to also check the previous time when the while loop is actually on. So let's count the previous time. So let's say time dot time. So we let's store into one variable. So when we press the T from the keyboard, we need to just calculate the time, and when it will move through this timer, we need to also calculate the current time. So for that, let's say current time. So let's say car equal to time dot time, and if this time is greater or equal to 1, then you're going to actually minimize this. That's when you're going to minus the 1 from the timer. So let's say if this current time is minus previous time, that's in previous time is greater equal to 1, so we're going to make this previous time should be current time. Okay, we're going to make this previous time to the current time. Okay, then we are going to actually minus 1 from the timer. Okay, so we can also use here the one wait key. So let's say cb2 dot wait key. So wait key, and inside this let's give here 1000 or 100, and we can also give here one put text, so which will actually show the countdown timer as a text. So we can use here cb2 dot put text. I think if you're a beginner, it's quite difficult for you to actually understand. So frame, so text, so our text is nothing but our timer. Then we have our arc, that's mean our coordinate. So let's give here 200 cos 250. So this is the coordinate. And let's say font face. So in cb2 there are so many font face. So let's say cb2 dot font hashtag complex, and scale, let's say give here 7 scale, and let's say color. So which color, let's say 02550, like any kind of color you can give. Then the thickness, let's give here 4, and the line type, so let's say cb2 dot line AA, use this one just. Okay, so now if I am trying to run the code, so webcam access allowed. So if I am trying to press T from the keyboard, and you can see countdown timer is actually activated. See, so after this countdown timer, you're going to take the pictures of that. So now if I press Q from the keyboard, you can see the keyboard Q. So you can see this loop is gone. Okay, that's really fine. So now we need to take the pictures, right? So let's say if this one, else, after the seconds, so let's say else. So we are going to take the pictures and store it inside our what's called, we are going to actually store it inside our directory. So in loop you can also use here the else conditions. So what I can do, we are going to copy this code, and just copy this one. Okay, then we are going to use this one. So let's format it out. We can use here the elif, right? Elif. Okay, then what I can do, we can actually use here the cb2.im, right? cb2.im, right? And inside that I need to give here one name, that's a camera, and I need to give here the frame. Let's now add this frame, and now it's done. So now let's run the code. Okay, I think after few seconds, so that after few seconds it will actually automatically disappear. We can actually give here 1000 or 1, whatever. So now I'm going to actually run the code. I think it's better we can give the wait key before this one. Okay, then I'm going to run the code here. So webcam access allowed. So if I take press T from the keyboard, and countdown timer is started. 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and boom. Okay, it will take in the picture or not. Okay, we got some error here. Okay, we got the error because we forget to give here the our image format name. So that's why we got this error. So let's run the code here again. Okay, just run the code. Webcam accesses, press T. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and boom. Okay, I hope it will take the pictures. Yep, fine. So to take the pictures, so Q, it will gone. So you can see here in the camera.jpg, it will take the picture of that. Okay, that's really fine. Well, okay. So using that, you can take the picture. Okay, that's really fine. So this is the whole tutorial. So hope you enjoyed this one. So this is the last project. So it's better you can also check the video again and again and make this countdown timer. So also comment below that you find this useful or not. So thanks for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe to the channel and also share with your friends so that I can get some subscribers. So bye bye.